I'll be honest, I have not been able to make a lot of videos on this because I really don't know how to go about demonstrating it. I mean, the actual things that make up a character and how to play them are kind of abstract, and for instance, the things that I would talk about in Street Fighter V are like, here's some Oki setups, here's a lot of combo routes, tools in neutral, etc. But a lot of that is a lot of those elements that would require much more explanation in 5 are not necessarily the case in 6. I mean, like, you got Lily, like, more or less, what are your combos? Oh. Just button, heavy drive rush into that, or just a single special, you know? So it's much more about like the situation that you can convert in. Like if I take any other random character, like Ken or something, it's not, you know, what combos, like in Street Fighter V it would be like, oh, if I'm at this range, you know, I could maybe get a starter with this, and then I could link that into this, and then if I'm slightly further away, I could get that, and then, because most of the hits that you land are very universal. Like, you land a Fierce, you land any of these buttons in neutral, this just goes into the target combo, but every other button you hit in neutral is just going to go into the exact same combo. You have just your corner carry combo, your slightly less corner carry combo, and then your slightly more damage and even less corner carry combo. And like, those are the combos. Those are the combos that you can do, except Ken has a bit more complexity depending on what he starts with and how much meter he wants to spend, which is not usually worth it if you get it off of a low forward. But that's what I mean. Like, all the combo, like every hit, no matter your distance, and any medium or heavy will just always go into the exact same combo routing. It's very weird to explain tech in this game, because there's a lot of, every tech is a bit universal in some way. Like, there's a million ways of just getting some meaty setup, drive rush to always go for the meaty. Any meaty setup you do, if you do like a strike or frame trap sequence, it leaves you open to perfect parry. You know, the only real thing to test is like what your options are against DI, but DI is not that hard for most of the cast, at least, to structure your offense around if you feel your opponent may be trying to do DIs. Anyways, for Lily, largely considered one of the weaker characters in the cast. I guess I'll explain. I'm not certain what my opinion is between modern or classic for Lily anymore. In many ways, let me turn on character-specific settings. So Lily's main thing, she has kind of weak buttons and moves in many aspects. A lot of these moves, for their range, they have like maybe decent hitbox hurtbox interactions, but they whiff forever. Huge recovery on whiff for all of her good normals. Pretty bad there. Medium punches, not special cancelable. Her 4-framer sucks. And her drive rush is not like particularly great. She can't just drive rush full screen and just get in like a lot of the stronger characters can. So, but she is a grappler. She has like a couple of weird ways to get in. Her jump is a bit floatier than a normal jump, but not like the absolute slowest jump in the game. She has stuff like that. That's always risky. She generally wants to get in. She has a pretty damaging command grab that does have good range for a 5-frame command grab. And beyond that, she anti-airs a bit better than some of the other grapplers because she does have a DP and she is a bit shorter. And this hits behind her head, which Zangief doesn't get. But yeah, her other stuff is just like these Wind Condor Spires, and especially EX Condor Spire, is the main neutral skipping move. It's the main thing of the character in general. But because of that, the opponent can constantly just block it and drive reversal it. And they have plenty of time. This isn't like a surprise or anything. Usually, unless it's perfectly spaced out here, then it's still going to get, you know, punished. So, because of this particular interaction, and there's other ways that the opponent can beat this EX Condor Spire, but this is like one of the main things that people constantly do. It just happens to work out this way, that people constantly do this to Lily. There are other characters that technically could be drive reversaled a lot more often. Like, you can drive reversal Honda every time you block or parry one of his sumo splashes. You can drive reversal Marisa every time you parry one of her specials, etc. Or most of her specials. But for, you know, whatever reason, the meta of the game has shifted so that this is a tactic people mostly use on Lily. Every time they block this, they reject it, and it does make sense. Like, Lily starts at 0 wind, she has to get a wind before she can do this, uses the wind and 2 bars, and then drive reversals. And then she does start rebuilding her gauge slightly before the opponent does. But even so, overall, it's fair to say that the opponent wins the exchange, because you both spend the exact same amount of meter, and they get the knockdown and you lose a win stock. So because of this, having a drive gauge advantage over the opponent to force you both to lose 2 bars at the same time, or maybe slightly more than 2 bars if you can get them to block something into the EX Condor Spire, etc. That's in addition to the fact that, you know, it's only +2 or +1 if you don't do the EX, and you have to still open the opponent up. And you're not necessarily in a great position to bait out DPs or reversal supers afterwards. But yes, this can be a difficult part of playing the character, because generally the opponent, so long as they're not wasting a lot of drive gauge. See, if the opponent spends drive gauge constantly and puts themselves in a situation where they don't have the drive meter to drive reversal you anymore, that's their own problem, and they just lose the matchup for themselves. Kind of like if you're playing like the more projectile-y zony characters, like Guile or JP or something, if they spend a lot of drive gauge spending EX moves from full screen and something and put themselves close to burnout, then you can just go through all their projectiles, and then they either have to hold it or put themselves in burnout by doing the drive reversal. So there's just like incorrect ways of playing against Lily that if someone doesn't know, you know, Lily has pretty decent ways of beating them. So it's very much about the habits of the opponent on some level. In general, I would say Lily struggles particularly hard against people that jump a lot, and she's a bit more susceptible to drive impact than most of the rest of the cast. So, really quick so I can get back to what I'm used to. The main things you lose in Modern that you have in Classic are, you have access to stand jab by itself, you have access to crouch short as a rapid cancel, so that's something you cannot do in Modern, this sequence. You can't do your confirms into stand jab, and thus into crouch fierce, so you lose a fair amount of utility on light confirms into drive rush. So you lose stuff like that. Generally, there are some instances where it's particularly handy to have the stand jab off of the drive rush. I do think stand jab is probably in some ways a better drive rush button than crouch jab. Especially because it is more plus. You lose standing medium kick, which is a generally all-around good button, and it's also her only medium, special cancelable medium that's, you know, that fast. her next one is 10 frames, so you have like no mediums or heavies between your lights and Crouch Fierce, which can limit some of the things you can do, and you lose access to that link off of Drive Rush or Punish Counter Back Fierce. And you lose Standing Heavy Kick. You also lose a couple of your jump buttons. You lose Jump Jab, which is not... It's okay. It's a better air-to-air than Jump Short, I guess. You lose Jumping Medium Kick, which, I played so much Modern, I honestly don't know how good this button is or not. I usually do Jump Short. It is much better than Jump Splash. Jump Splash kind of is not great. Jump Short's alright as a cross-up. And, more significantly, you lose Jump Fierce, which is her furthest downwards hitting jumping button. And yes, you lose Roundhouse, which is a nice, long-reaching poke to have. It hits a lot further than any of her other actions. On Punish Counter, it gets a quick knockdown, which you can't do much off of except for get a wind. And, it drains quite a bit of drive gauge on block, which is the main reason I think it's handy to have. But anyways, I prefer Modern. I think Modern is probably slightly stronger, if anything. I don't know. It's hard to say, because it's hard to say how you should play the character, and especially against certain matchups. Because, like with most characters, there's an offensive and a defensive way to play the character, and you kind of have to alternate between those two styles, right? So, in terms of tools in neutral, especially if we turn off our wind here, so round start, we do not have great options with this character. So, we have some okay buttons here and there. Stand Strong is pretty decent as just a poke, but still 29 frames of total recovery. Only is a poke, doesn't generate any reward on hit or on block or counter hit or anything. Crouch Strong, which is meh. Low forward is alright. It hits slightly further than Stand Medium Kick, and they both have decent hitbox-hurtbox interactions. This is 10 frames and 30 frames total recovery, so the slowest low forward in the game. Is special cancelable, though. And yeah, all of her heavy punches and stuff have tons and tons of recovery. So her buttons are good in some ways if the opponent is approaching her or stuck in this range. But if you're just playing footsies and walking, they're quite bad, because the opponent's walk speed, most opponents' walk speed, is more than enough to move in and out and just dance all around her buttons, because they're slow on startup. They don't have super great range, they only just have pretty solid range for their speed, and they have tons of recovery. So anytime the opponent walks forward, walks back, all your buttons are constantly whiffing. If you're going to try them in neutral, that's not really the best way to approach it. Her forward dash kind of sucks, doesn't go super far, and it's pretty long at 21 frames. That being said, it is something you need to represent with the character. She does have to dash. Oh, right, I forgot to mention, she also loses her overhead in Modern, which is actually a pretty good move. Her overhead has some pretty good utility overall. So yes, her buttons are good if they... Okay, let me demonstrate. So if I have him block and then reversal with various buttons. Let's say standing medium kick, right? There's a lot of ways in which, if she's in this range, so this is, what, 0 on block? Yeah, 0 on block, so perfectly even. If she's in this range and the opponent's, like, not walking in and out, she knows that they're going to be stuck there at that range. Her buttons can be pretty good. So as you can see, some things trade here and there. This is slower and catches like whiffs. It's really good at that baiting if you think they're moving forwards or attacking. So as you can see, all of her moves pretty solid in this range. Most of her buttons, not bad at doing this particular thing. Now, unfortunately, she can struggle a bit against sweeps, especially some of the faster sweeps, like 9-frame sweeps. Like this move from Jamie is one of her more trickier moves to deal with in this instance, because like it's fast and hits about as far as most of her normals, so ranges where she's usually dominant, she's no longer dominant against this particular move. There's only certain things that she does that still beat it. If you were in Classic, this would not be as much of a headache, because standing medium kick kind of shores up this weakness a little bit as a buffer. But again, it's still a buffer that you have to do, so you know, you can beat the sweep by buffer and crouch jab like this. It's just standing medium kick is a better buffer button than crouch jab. Crouch jab kind of has a shittier hitbox than stand medium kick, but yeah. And also, for instance, the nature of her slower buttons means that when you block something like this is -10, she doesn't really get great punishes on this either. She only really gets that. Some buttons like this, like sweeps especially, quite a few sweeps, not great for the character. Character has kind of mediocre options here. Now, granted, she is a character that can neutral jump and backdash more than other characters because, again, that cat and mouse style, you move in sometimes or you back off and run away and try to bait the opponent to come in with your wind stocks and with your other shenanigans. And she can neutral jump better than some characters that don't have any air options because she does have this, although this is unsafe on block no matter how you do it. Unless the opponent's in burnout, this is unsafe on block. Etc. So, generally, against a lot of the cast, now, let me try to pick a character that, like, has normals that she's not that great against. Etc. So some characters have buttons that she is just not good against. This one in particular. This is a particular situation where having standing medium kick is actually quite handy. So anyways, that's like kind of the idea. Her normals, her general moveset, not super great in the actual neutral. However, if you can force an interaction like this to get into, like, a little tag to make sure the opponent isn't walking backwards, just confirm their positioning like that, drive rushing with this, you're both 0. Her buttons can win against a lot of the characters in a lot of the neutral interactions. Now, depending on what else you do, you can get slightly more plus if you need to against some of the more troublesome normals, so that's +1. If you slide into it, it's +2. Standing medium punch is pretty active for when you slide into it, so it can also be up to like +2. If you come in with crouch fierce, depending on the distance, you can be pretty good. You're +2 by default off of a drive rush crouch fierce on block. Now, when you're in this range, you have some of the buttons that are necessary. You need to be close enough for like crouch fierce and standing medium punch to reach. And then you're at a good spot. If you're farther away than that, you're not at a good spot. You don't have that many options. So anyways, yes. The general way of playing the character, you have your aggressive, your offense, and then you have your defense that you have to Okay, my theory for playing this game, right, is you need to apply a lot of mental concepts to the opponent. This is not a game where you have to win every single situation. I mean, there's lots of ways to reverse a situation. The opponent can do, like, the opponent can just do, like... I don't know how to do this on his modern inputs. But whatever. The point is, they can just drive rush, hit you low, and then you're already in the corner right off the bat. But all it takes is for them to meet you, or do any string, and if you perfect parry it, now they're in the corner, and they've spent all this drive gauge cornering you. And now they're in the problematic situation. There's lots of stupid ways like that to reverse the situation. So, like, the opponent aggressing you, while Lily is a character with relatively bad defense, she doesn't have a DP, her level 1 super is not great, her level 3 is not great, etc. And she doesn't have many other great, her only, like, good purely defensive tool is the fact that if you have wind, you can't get safe jumped. Because she gets a 4-frame anti-air invuln DP, which is the fastest in the game. So no safe jumps will work against you anymore. Etc. So things that are safe jumps against every other character are not safe jumps against Lily with wind. Beyond that, her anti-air DP, not that great. I mean, it's fine, it just doesn't have the it has some benefits. It goes quite far horizontally, but that also is a problem for kind of closer range anti-airs. The opponent jumps at you or around right in front of your head. It's very frequent that it'll just whiff underneath them. Her crouching heavy punches hits much further behind her head than most anti-airs in the game, so that's a benefit. And it gets a juggle state on counter hit. But even then, not like super reliable, it's just convenient to have. But regardless, even if she has weaker defense than the rest of the cast, you still have options to completely turn things around. You have perfect parry, you have DI, you have, you can mash out, similar to how Zangief will, you can mash out your EX command grab, or light command grab in instances, and it'll be a stronger 5-framer than most other characters in the cast, and it's something you don't have to buffer, etc. Can be used for the character, especially when the opponent does some fake string, like a jab into a medium or something. She can jump like every other character. She can jump, she can neutral jump, and she can even, you know, try a hard bait. If she sees she's going to get anti-aired, she can make a secondary decision in the air. So, she has any tools that any character would necessarily want to switch sides with the opponent. So, getting rushed down, not necessarily the worst thing for the character, even though she is quite weak to it. Because you can still win. You can, if you perfect parry some Kami, meaty, crouch heavy punch, you can win. You can win off of that. In most matchups, perfect parry will serve you better than it'll serve the opponent. Because in most matchups, the opponent will not be able to punish perfect parry as hard as you can punish them. If they parry, and you punish them with a command throw, you will deal significantly more damage than they could have done to you. As if you react to a perfect parry attempt with level 3, you can deal even more damage. Because it is a grab, so it will punish counter parries. There's certain instances, like, for instance, a common place that people will try to perfect parry Lily is, after blocking this, because she's +2, or especially after blocking these, because she's +1, so her only true frame trap is light kick, so people buffer a perfect parry there. You can backdash, and then buffer in like a command grab or something, and if the opponent whiffs a parry, you can punish it harder than they could punish you if you tried to do something similar to their offense. So, parry is more your friend than it is the opponent's friend. If you get into a bad defensive spot, you can use perfect parry, and if you do turn the tables on them and put them in the corner, they have to guess more dangerously. But anyways, as for playing between the defense and the offense, first things first, she's slightly better at defense, or significantly better. She struggles to apply offense. She does find it difficult to get in without one of these moves, and even then, this just gets drive reversaled, so she struggles to get in with this as well. So, she struggles to apply pressure and get in. She also has pretty low strike damage even when she is in, so you have to kind of adjust for that fact. The main value of the character is twofold. Her command grab, actually legitimately strong and damaging, and she does get actual Oki from it. There's 3 things she can do after landing command grab. She can just take a wind stock. She can drive rush up and meaty them with the button. Crouch fierce or forward fierce will be good. Or she can do EX Wind Spire immediately, and she'll get +8 on their wake up, which they will not be. They could perfect parry, but they will not be able to, drive reversal or anything like that. Her normal throws also pretty strong. She gets Oki off of both of them. Her forward throw is +20. So you can drive rush and crouch fierce, and it will cover both options, both wake ups. It'll meaty him, and in fact, if he does back roll, it's a much better situation for you. You want them to back roll here, because off of the back roll, you're perfectly positioned to do that cancel as a true block string, and then you're +1 in front of their face without having to spend any additional resources. So you want them to back roll there, especially because if they don't back roll, they could react to your drive rush with a DP or something. Now, as a character, like I said, you kind of have to adjust in an abstract way how you go about approaching it. Whether or not you want to be aggressive, defensive, bait, patient, or active, offense or defense. Go for a lot of wind stocks, how you play your drive gauge, etc. I will say, for neutral and defense, you want at least 1 wind stock, just on your person. Very convenient to have at least 1 wind stock. The reason for that is that, 1, your DPs and everything gets better. This, the light Condor Spire, is a pretty solid move in neutral if you're not trying to chase them. If they're either maintaining their space or trying to move towards you, this is pretty good in this close range. The further away you use these, the weaker they become, including the EX. It gives them more time to react. And all of the versions that are not EX, when you do them this far out, they can just drive impact them. They're only 2 hits when they're this far out. So these moves are quite susceptible. If you overuse them in the close range, like for instance, if you're +1, let's say, let me give myself 2 wind stocks. If you're +1, and then you do light, let's say, you can then create a true block string off of that light into the next one. So you can do like light into, or not a true block string rather, but you can get 3 hits. You can get all 3 hits so that even if they reversal with a DI, it breaks it. See what I mean? However, if you do 3 hits instead, see, here's the funny thing. If the opponent reversals immediately, they'll get hit by the first hit. Right there. But if they do a slight delay, so if they try to react to your special cancel with a DI, then they'll only get hit by 2 hits, and it'll blow up your wind spire, your cancel. So if you're a bit overly consistent with the way that you cancel these, you can get blown up by DI. That's a common thread for this character. If you're too consistent with certain things, a lot of characters can play in a way where they're not forced to do things that leave them open to DI. A lot of characters, like Luke can just throw fireballs outside of DI range, and then anytime he goes in is with a drive rush, or he can do low forward drive rush or crouch strong drive rush, and beyond that he's just dashing, jabbing, crouch strong, which only is 21 frames in total, or jumping with jump fierce, etc. So he never really has to do anything that leaves him open to DI. He genuinely does not have to do a single action that could get DI'd. He can, but he doesn't have to. Lily has to. Lily frequently has to make decisions that, if the opponent guesses correctly, can just be DI'd. Even EX Condor Spire, it hits way more times, but they can slip in DIs where, just by the nature of when the hits actually hit, it just somehow sneaks in, just armors 2 hits, and then hits before a third one hits them. And not to mention, if you're playing against a player playing in Modern that has like a one-button DP like you have with Modern Lily, then they can also react to these if you do them far out like this. I do not think these moves are good at this range. They're not... I don't think they're meant to be used in neutral this way, for the most part, except to punish certain things, like maybe Jamie's trying to steal a drink that he shouldn't be, etc. These are not things you can freely throw out that are safe or worth doing for Lily. So anyways, yes, the main way that you can play the neutral is, first you need to get some wind. You can't always be completely predictable. Sometimes maybe you start by trying to go aggro, sometimes you start by trying to be defensive. If you can bring the opponent all the way backwards to your corner and manage to get a side switch somehow, it can be worth it. You know, she can run away a bit better than she can be aggressive, so it depends on the matchup. I do think, as a character who has decent, ability to stop the opponent from moving in, and not very good ways of getting in against a defensive opponent, I do think that you probably want to get a life lead pretty early, and luckily she does not need wind to be aggressive. Wind mostly helps her defense, if I'm being honest, because when you have wind, this becomes much safer and easier to use on defense, because it goes from 17 startup to 9 frame startup, 3 hits, including the first one, which is pretty short, and it's plus on block, so even if you misspace it like that, because they're moving towards you, you're plus anyways. So this is a good defensive technique against people that are either playing footsies in this range or trying to move towards you. Doubly so, this. This is a great defensive move. This is a great, EX Chariot Tackle, but plus on block. Also low crushes. Really, really, really solid defensive move. And there's a lot of instances where you're outside the range of, your usually good moves like this. You're right outside of this range. And the opponent can just kind of harass you with their better options. So, for instance, if you're around this range, and let's say you're a bit minus or something, you're outside of the range of your usually better buttons, so it's a bit risky to do them. They could forward jump, they could just sit there and whiff punish you, they could DI you. Dangerous to just whiff these out, necessarily. You have to sometimes, but it is still dangerous to do so. But the opponents can still lock you down with their super long-reaching moves. This is where having these wind moves comes in really handy as a much safer, direct way of combating the opponent's footsies. Yes, this move is strong even this far out because it's still hard to react to and it's plus on block. This move is much better here because it's 9 frame startup and it's really, really powerful at stopping the opponent's close range. You don't need to beat the opponent here at this range most of the time. Unless they're a zoning character and they're throwing fireballs you have to get through, you don't need to do this from this far away. You can wait until you are closer. You can close the gap with other things, not have to spend wind to close the gap, not take those risks on getting, on having this get backdashed or neutral jumped or something, not take those risks. You can move in with dashes, with shallow jumps like this, and with Drive Rush into these pokes that will put you at a better distance. And then you can be aggressive. So that's generally, yeah. Wind helps you mainly by giving you these two moves, which are very helpful when you're in this range against the opponent. You don't want to overextend, even when you have wind, you don't want to overextend trying to be aggressive if the opponent is just backing away from you, right? That's not where that's not where Lily is strong. So, if they're just giving you space, you need to look for places to get more wind. Eventually, once you have maxed out wind, you will have to find a way to go in, which is still a challenge, even with max wind. But, you know, it's just, what you'll have to do with the grappler character. But anyways, in the neutral, when you're not going in, you either have to be switching between, like, forward-moving offense and little pokes and stuff to stop the opponent from being very comfortable with chasing you all the time, which they're going to be chasing you a lot if you run away and get wind stocks in this way. The default game that most Lily players play is they usually back off to a mildly safe distance, at least back off far enough that a forward jump won't reach them. Because she can do this, and she can do this, but neither one will hit a jump in. So, she'll usually do this, or do the heavy version, and maybe hold them, because they look visually indistinguishable from each other. And if the opponent, like, say, drive rushes in across the screen, and you happen to be doing the heavy version, you release it. So if you mix between these two options, the one where you just recover and the one that has a knockdown strike with good range and speed, that's like the main way that people apply this. But it's a bit gimmicky. There are consistent ways characters have of beating it if they're focusing on it. Again, the point of this is that you need to apply more mental stack to the opponent. And I'm not just talking about like offense or anything like that. You need to have them thinking about... You need to force them to have to solve multiple different problems, right? Do things that force them to respond in a certain way, even if they're weak things, right? Even if they're literally just like drive rush sweep and the opponent punishes you with their 8-framer or something. You have to do enough things that it applies a heavy mental strain on the opponent. They have to think about 5 or 6 different things at least, right? So that's why, not just with Lily, but with the entire cast, you sometimes have to do things that are kind of not great. You have to do things that, on their own, are not very strong tools, and probably won't even necessarily succeed, but you're not trying to win every situation. First and foremost, you want the opponent to have to be thinking about multiple different things that you're doing. So, if you're jumping a lot, jumping like this... That, and sometimes throwing in this if they, like, have any forward movement or something that you see. That is something that you can be doing in neutral, that they have to think about that. They're like, alright, how do I beat this strategy that they're doing? If you backdash a lot, and then sometimes, like, and then go for these wind and this wind gimmick, they have to think about, alright, how do I smartly play around? What options do I have that are, like, decent for approaching this weird thing that she's doing? You have your various approach options, or just default pokes in the mid-range, especially once you have wind and you can threaten with this and the EX. They have to think about, alright, how do I deal with that while they're trying to approach you? There's also, how do I anticipate and punish it when you sometimes do it from full screen or something as an aggressive tool to go in. Again, I said that these are not great tools to do from this range, but you should do things that are not great tools. Ironically, you need to do things that are not great tools in this game because you have to apply more mental stack. Lily is a character that already has less mental stack she puts on the opponent in neutral than a lot of other characters. If you're playing Ken, the mental stack is no problem. Because by default, the opponent already has to think about forward dash button, low forward, which is really fast and long range. They have to think about drive rush into fierce or low forward. They have to think about giving him too much space and then doing fireball drive rush. They have to think about this and like be looking for it and be able to react to it or otherwise predict it. They have to be thinking about his stupid fucking jump fierce and stuff. And they have to be thinking about drive rush and all the options, including throw, and they have to be thinking about run overhead. In addition to, whenever they block something, they have to be thinking about Jinrai mix. Jinrai follow-ups. These are all things that are just built into Ken's toolkit because he has a good dash, good fast buttons, and he can chase the opponent down and force them to deal with it. This stupid move, good jump-ins, and a really, really, really good drive rush. So, all of these things, just by default, if you just rotate between these options, it is already incredibly difficult for the opponent to deal with, even if you have no strategy or thought in how you apply these things. Just by doing all of them at some point or another, it makes it very difficult for the opponent. That's a lot of mental stack you're putting on them. Lily does not have that same luxury because she doesn't have as many moves that do that. She doesn't have the same forward movement. She can't just dash up and hit a button and then get into a drive rush in the same way. Her dash is slower, her buttons are slower, and her raw drive rush and neutral is slower. So she does not have those same like myriad of options that are constantly applying things that the opponent has to be worried about, thinking about, and looking for, and planning for how to beat. So you have to figure out more ways to put mental stack on the opponent. When you do this wind gag shenanigans and like lots of jumps or backdashes or like some abnormal movements here and there, when you do some of these kind of things, the opponent doesn't even necessarily need to beat it. See, that's the thing. You know how there's a common thing, especially in Street Fighter, that goes back, you know, like decades, where in Street Fighter games, a lot of players will lose even though they were already winning because they tried to beat something that they didn't even have to beat. Because they got frustrated, or because, like, they were goaded into playing in a way that left themselves open. Like even just a couple of years ago, like I remember a Justin Wong versus Itazan match where Itazan had like the biggest life lead ever, and Justin just never really, like, in practical theory, if Itazan has full health and Justin has like 10% health, Justin is the one that has to go in. Itazan can literally just sit there and do nothing the whole match, and Justin has to find a way to get in. But he was so patient, and he used like all the 99 seconds, and he played in such a way that he was able to trick Itazan into opening himself up and still somehow won the round. With a character that is not good at making those kinds of comebacks or being aggressive like that. It's the same way here. You can do all these win shenanigans to try to bait the opponent into running into your attacks or being impatient and moving towards you so that you can, you know, if it's hard for you to move towards them, maybe you can bait them to move towards you. But here's the thing. The opponent doesn't have to punish you for doing this. Even if you get 3 win stocks, that's not even the worst situation for the opponent. They can just let you get the 3 win stocks, and so long as they have the life lead, you still have to find a way to get in. But the idea is that you have to trick them. You want to trick them to thinking that they can't just let whatever you're doing slide. You have to do actions or play in such a way that anything that you're doing at least tricks them into thinking that they have to find a way to beat it. Because then they have to start thinking about it, and then the more they're thinking about it, the harder it is for them to react and play and think, because their mental stack is getting strained. That is the goal. So, this is a pretty good way to bait the opponent. Again, they don't have to punish this. Most characters do not have to go in when Lily is doing this. They can just let her hang out and then just be more think about other things. Stop her other approach options and such. Not let themselves get baited into making decisions that leave themselves open. But if you can play in just enough of a way, in just a mysterious enough of a way, that your intentions are unclear, that they don't know if they can confidently say, I am doing the right thing, right? So if you can get them to think that they are actually somehow losing the situation by you doing any action, such as this, that's the goal. That's the goal. You need to apply more mental stack, a greater quantity of total things that the opponent has to be looking for and thinking about, and you have to play in such a way that you make them feel unconfident in how they are approaching the matchup. That's not just with Lily. That's every character in the game. You have to do that. The game is very guess heavy. The game is very like specific situation. Like if you're fighting, a Kami can be running over you, but if you perfect parry one jab at close range, or one meaty crouch fierce, or one dive kick or something, you can back throw her into the corner, and then, she can die off of a couple of wrong guesses. She could also put you back in the corner with one correct guess, but she can still die off of a couple wrong guesses. So it cuts both ways. Some characters don't have to... Now this is hotly contested amongst the entire player base right now, since the game has came out, about how guessy the game is, how consistent you can make any given situation, given mechanics like perfect parry and such, that can just completely reverse someone's offense on themselves. Some characters seem to be able to, in my opinion, some characters seem to be able to have like slightly more control. Like for instance, Chun-Li does not do a lot of tight, consistent block strings. She doesn't do, like, stuff like that a ton. A lot of it is her being very loose in the neutral, doing a lot of forward strong, and mostly a lot of stand jab and low forward. And these, because of how fast she walks, and she walks insanely fast in this game, and because of how difficult it is to react to just a stand jab, because her stand jab is just 13 frames in total, not within human reaction speed. Even though it is -3, it's very difficult for the opponent to recognize that they blocked it and take an action. So Chun-Li gets perfect parried much less frequently than a lot of the rest of the cast, because it's hard to see that you block this and then anticipate a low forward and get the perfect parry timing correctly. Especially when they might do jab jab instead, or jab low forward, etc. Jab short. So and also when she does get knockdowns, she doesn't have to do consistent like meaty setups per se. She really doesn't have to go in. She can do something like that instead. She can just knock you back, and then just set up her fireball, and then just go back to playing neutral. If she gets this far away, she can set up a fireball again and go in, but if not, her super fast, her good dash, and extremely good walk speed lets her play in a very loose way that is not conducive to the opponent knowing exactly when she's going to strike, and thus getting perfect parries against her. So she can play in a way that's arguably more consistent, because she does not have to... The things that are already strong with the character are not that weak to perfect parries. They're not that susceptible to the opponent knowing when you're going to attack. Whereas a character like Lily, you have to do very tight sequences in order to lock your opponent down, and you just have to read them better, You take more risks with perfect parry in all of your sequences, all of your block strings, all your light block strings and such, or just all of your general tech. Like when you do this on block into itself to lock them down, or when you do that into crouch fierce, these are consistent setups. Or when you do, say when you're like +6 and +6 is a great position. When you're +6, it is a perfect position to hit crouch fierce, or like any of your options, because generally the opponent, like, I'm pretty sure almost no opponents have buttons that will win against crouch fierce in this situation. If you hit them with jab and then do crouch fierce, this just pretty much locks them down. This just wins against any button they might press as a reversal. That being said, she has to do it exactly at that point, because if she waits until she's +5 or lower, she won't be able to lock them down. They'll be able to jump out. Like so. So, because Lily is very restricted to doing exactly a small number of options in exact situations, She is more susceptible to getting perfect parried. However, this is balanced out by the fact that she has command grab in level 3, which make it much riskier for the opponent to try to parry. In my opinion, there are certain things you just kind of have to accept in order to play the game most effectively. Like, there's a lot of players, I know because I was one for a long time, playing after this game came out. I would never do DI against an opponent in the corner unless they were, burnt out and it was guaranteed or almost guaranteed. I would never just do, like, frivolous, random, offbeat timing DIs. I would never DI to try to wall splat them because that just didn't feel like me and my playstyle. I don't like doing anything in a fighting game that I feel takes the onus away from me and gives it to the opponent. So I don't like hitting a button and then waiting and praying to God that he's not prepared for what I just did. So that's why I don't like jumping very much, and I don't like doing DI in the corner. However, there are certain things you just have to accept about this game if you want to perform strongly in it, and this is one of those things, is you have to do this because it's legitimately strong. If you do it at offbeat timings, it's difficult to react to, and even if you're not trying to win the exact situation, again, like I said, you need to represent this sometimes because the opponent has to be scared of it. If you never do it, the opponent can just forego looking for it, which occasionally can let you sneak it in some ways, but it is much stronger to have the opponent be constantly looking for it and worried about it, because it makes that mental stack, the more things you can add to their minds, the things they're concerned about, the more you can grind down their entire gameplay, the more you can grind down their ability to react to anything or particularly plan for anything that you're doing. So you have to do stuff like this, and you have to accept, don't feel like, oh, I don't want to do this particular thing because it feels risky. No, you have to sometimes wake up super. You have to represent that option. The potential reward if you're right, and also the fact that you have to make the opponent be worried about it, is indescribable in this game. So, for instance, if you're fighting against an opponent that doesn't get, Oki off of their anti-air, it's not a terrible idea in this game. It might feel like shitty to do because but you might just jump at the opponent, let yourself get anti-aired if they're ready to react and anti-air you, and then, now that you're closer to them, now that you've been anti-aired, you can try to win the situation with a perfect parry, or with a button, something that beats them, with a wake-up mash, with, etc. You have to do the flagrant things, and you have to accept that every single thing that you do is on a rotation of options that can just be completely countered for huge reward in this game. Any button you press, ever, in a predictable sequence of any kind, or in a situation where you consistently press that same option, will leave you open to perfect parry, and you have to accept that, and also use it, and then study the patterns of how an opponent, or how usually an opponent character, because they all play very similarly in this game, how a particular character generally likes to press their buttons or structure when they hit certain buttons, and then practice those things, practice those perfect parry timings. You have to do that. You have to, if you want to be stronger than your opponent, those are things that you just have to accept. You have to take those bets, make those hard calls. Don't be shy about, making particular hard reads or taking certain risks. Because everything that you're doing is a risk. In this game, way more so than Street Fighter V, just existing is a risk. If you're in the corner, in Street Fighter V, you could just sit, relax. You could literally just stop paying, just enter your happy place, enter a state of zen, relax, not worry about the situation that much, not pay that close of attention, not be super focused. You can let yourself relax, calm down, think calmly and rationally about the situation, and just let the opponent kind of throw you sometimes, and maybe occasionally buffer in like a delay tech or a delay button check to stop their walk-ups or something. But you can play in a very risk-averse way and just slowly let them kind of get some damage, because there's an upper limit to how much they can do. In this game, if you're in the corner, there's no such thing as something that is not risky to do. If you're blocking, you're taking a risk, because you're taking a risk losing drive gauge by blocking any heavies or anything. You're taking a risk getting throw looped. You're taking a risk not being ready to react to DI, or not being able to react to the opponent stealing another turn by dashing up, drive rushing, or jumping at you, or doing anything else that steals a turn. You are always taking risks. It's not like just blocking in this game is less risky than just trying to go for a flagrant jump out or something. DI is a bit riskier than other things because it's more likely to lose than other options, because even if the opponent it loses to throw, it loses to the opponent doing jabs, and it loses if the opponent's just doing nothing and reacts in time, etc. So this is one of your riskier options, but it still is something you have to represent sometimes. Usually just in places if you're confident it will hit, like against if you think the opponent's going to do like a low forward fireball or something like Luke, or a particular poke that is more than 26 frames in total recovery. Don't hamstring yourself by thinking that there's risks that are not worth taking. There aren't. All decisions you make are equally bad and stupid and shitty, so don't worry about it. The only thing that is less risky compared to its reward is perfect parry. So that is by far, at least in the current state of the game, until anything gets rebalanced or patched or whatever, perfect parry is the most cost-effective, risk-effective decision-making against most of the cast. Because most of the cast will only be able to punish you for this by doing a punish counter throw, which takes 1.5 bars of your meter and does 2,000 damage to you. And also they get the Oki of their forward throw, which usually lets them get another one. Or get Oki off of it. But, the point is, you max out the risk at losing 2,000 damage. And if the opponent isn't, right next to you, a lot of the times they won't either be able to or be confident in walking up and throwing you. If they're at, this distance and you whiff a parry or something, trying to perfect parry, if you're confident in how the opponent, what timing they do for a standing medium kick or a heavy kick from Cammy or something, and you buffer a perfect parry at that spot that you've trained. The risk you take is very, very small, and even if you're dead wrong and they dash up throw you, max risk is 2,000 damage against most opponents. Compared to every other risky play that you can do in this game, that if you're right, it's great, and you get a lot of reward out of it, but if you're wrong, you can lose 6,000 damage. If you're wrong about a DP or a wake-up super, you can lose 6,000 damage. If you're wrong about a jump out and you get meatied into drive rush combo, you can lose 4,000 damage. 4,000 health. Perfect parry, the risk is much, much smaller, but if you practice those timings and do them in places where you're confident at their button presses, if you're right, the reward, fantastic. You get tons of meter, side switch, or whatever combo you want to. You build super gauge. Your super gauge that you build after you do a perfect parry combo on them, totally unscaled. So you build full super gauge on it. You can get your positioning that you want, side switches, etc. Look how much super I built for just doing that. One punish counter, I build back a ton of meter for doing so, and you completely reverse the situation. Perfect parry is the only defensive option that you should especially train your ability to do effectively in a lot of situations, in neutral or on defense, and maybe even sometimes on offense, because every other option that you can do, including being passive and patient and blocking and stuff, is equally terrible. Every option is equally risk or reward, equally feast or famine, equally fucking shit, equally, if you're right, you can get huge reward, if you're wrong, you're fucking dead. that's just the game. So you have to accept that. Don't be shy about taking risks. There's no such thing as risks in this game. And train perfect parry, because it's less of a risk. But anyways, that's just generally for the game. But, you know, not necessarily strictly for Lily. But that is part of my point, is that Lily has a lot of things. Like, Lily is a scummy grappler character. There's a lot of things you can do with this character that people, I think, tend to try to avoid doing, either because they don't want to take that big of a risk, or because, like, either because they're worried about their risk being wrong, or because they just feel bad about taking risks like that. Because that's how I felt whenever I would do, like, jumps or DIs in the corner. I didn't want to do them, and I don't like doing them in fighting games in general, because it feels really shitty to me to take a risk like this, and even if it rewards you, I don't necessarily feel good about it. It just feels like, it just feels kind of gimmicky. Like, the onus is on the opponent to stop you from doing this, like, weird, cheap bullshit. And the skill and onus is not necessarily... Like, I'm just doing some brain-dead shit. Like, just hitting one button while they're in the corner. They're the one that has to be playing the game and paying attention to what... and guessing correctly about the random bullshit that I'm doing without thinking about it. So, a lot of people don't like taking certain risks or certain scumbag, fuck you, no respect actions just because they kind of feel like a little icky about the prospect. Just do it. Just shut up, do it. It's the nature of the game. It's especially the nature of this character. You have to fucking play like that. Don't be like, oh, I want to play honest. Shut the fuck up. You're not fucking playing honest. You're fucking hitting buttons and buffering them into Drive Rush. You're fucking doing EX Win Condor Spire. You are not honest. Stop worrying about it. So anyways, back to her neutral. Like I said, the main idea, and like there are certain techniques that I can demonstrate, but I think more important than the techniques is like describing this philosophy of how you should approach the game and approach which tools. Like I can just list a number of tools that Lily has, but the point of it is how you complete it into this kit of... In general, for characters, I think there's 4 things that really matter to a character in this game. There's... Okay, let me, like, take Luke for an example. So I've added on a number of things for him to neutral jump and then do. So every single one of these things loses to EXDP from Luke. If he drive rushes in your face, it loses to EXDP. If he jumps at you, it loses to DP. If he does heavy Dragon Lash, loses to DP. If he does any of his drive rush options except for like drive rush into DI or drive rush into super, it would lose to DP. So he would have to hard call that out to beat it. And even Fireball. Luke's EXDP is so good, it can even tag Fireballs at this range. So, all of these options lose to DP. So even though Ken has a million things to apply mental stack to you, like, those are a billion different tools that he has. Like, let's say I don't... Let me switch characters. And let's say I don't use... Let me try fucking Zangief to try to deal with this. And I will put on the repeat replay. way harder, because I have to do different options for his different things. If he drive rushes, I have to check it with a low short. But if he drive rushes into heavy Dragon Lash, I have to then after doing low short and it whiffs, I have to then react with like maybe a Stand Fierce or maybe a EX Lariat or something that then armors through or perfect parries the Dragon Lash. If he jumps, I just have to do an immediate Stand Fierce for the armor or Lariat. If he does heavy Dragon Lash, I have to do like Lariat or perfect parry or something. And if I accidentally react to the forward movement with a crouch short, it gets punish countered. And if he does a fireball and I hit any button or do any of those things, it gets hit. So I have to be patient of the fireball and of just the regular forward movement that I can't react to, etc. So there's a variety of different things that he can do that I have to react with completely different things. Whereas Luke can beat every single one of these options with a single tool. So, when I talk about the 4 things that I think really matter to a character in this game, the first thing that I think matters is tools that allow you to control. There's ways that you can apply mental stack to the opponent, but there's also tools in the neutral that control the mental stack. So Luke has this fantastic EXDP that is so good at controlling and reducing the mental stack strain that he has to suffer because it beats so many things all at the same time. You don't have to react to 3 different things with 3 different options and have that confusion in your brain and have to switch your hands and how they react. You can react to so many different things with the same option. That is incredibly useful. It makes it so much easier to deal with all of those options, and it just makes you feel so much more comfortable and confident in the neutral. So yes, this EXDP, amazing move. It is insanely good. It's one of the best DPs in my opinion. So, if you have moves like that so you need moves that, one, cover a lot of options, okay? Moves that like control the forward aggression and stuff and are very convenient at beating the things that you need to react to, plus moves that deal with a lot of different options at the same time, you know, moves that you can use to react to 3 or 4 different things without having to change what you do, and etc. So these are very great, these types of controlling tools that like reduce the strain on your mental stack and also just give you more control because it makes it much easier for you to shut down flagrant stuff in the neutral. These are very important tools for a character to have. So the first aspect that I judge a character on out of the 4 categories that I've arbitrarily decided is ease of controlling the tools, ease of controlling the things that you have to react to, the various things that the opponent applies mental stack to you. So, great tools like this, and just having like a really good like drive rush into 4-framer, 6-framer, etc. All of these I consider very universal tools, because this is not a game where you can just hang around passively and defensively and just try to react to and stop everything the opponent does at you. Even characters that have really good tools at reacting to forward approach and aggression, like Luke, who has probably arguably the best tool in the entire game at doing this, in this and his level 1. Even Luke is not a character that can just hang out in neutral and not be aggressive and still win. Even with the best tools in the game at trying to react to flagrant turn-stealing, neutral-skipping options, you won't check everything. So, it's not just defense. Defense is also your ability to initiate your offense before the opponent can do it to you. You want to be, you know... I don't necessarily think that you have to be constantly attacking the opponent, but like you have to be doing the thing that puts the thing on screen so that you are the one initiating a situation in which you have an advantage. In addition to the fact that you also have to be putting mental pressure on the opponent by forcing them to react to stuff and deal with stuff. Next aspect of a character that I think is very important in addition to controlling tools is just pure damage output. Very simple. Damage and also kind of oaky. The faster you can kill the opponent in the fewer number of correct decisions, the better. Third aspect of a character is the mental stack that you can apply to the opponent. So this means the number of things you can force them to have to think about in the neutral or on offense or on pressure. So the mental stack that you can apply to the opponent. The fourth thing that I think is important for a character, and this is like kind of mixed in with the third thing and all the other things, is your ability to continue to play at an advantage while not draining yourself of resources. So this is the one aspect where Luke is not as strong as some of the other characters. He's really strong at the first three options. He's really strong at the first two options, first two aspects. Pretty strong at the third aspect of applying mental stack to the opponent. He has a really strong drive rush. He constantly forces you to have to think about fireball. He even has things that people don't even use, like he has his running overhead that, depending on how it, and his running tackle that can be spaced to be safe. And he has a really strong, really good forward dash, huge distance and pretty fast, and he has a stupid jumping heavy punch. In addition to the fact that he can make DPs whiff with this move. So yeah, he has a variety of things to apply mental stack. He can do stuff like that. Again, this option, I do not think is a very good option for the character unless the opponent's in burnout or something, or Luke has level 3. But this option, the reason why I think people do it, and I mean, granted, I think a lot of people just need to train themselves to react to this with DI instead of parry, because tons of people parry this when you can just DI it. You can't DI it when he has level 3, but most of the time you can DI this. But the point is that this is a tool that on its own, on paper, not that good. However, it's another fucking thing for the opponent to have to think about and react to with the appropriate action. So you put that on top of a character who's already really good and has lots of things that force the opponent to think about them that you can take in the neutral at any time. And you add that in on top of it, it's no wonder people are not ready to react to it. Because it's not the biggest thing on their mind, they don't have to worry about it, so they don't... It would probably be a mistake if people put more focus on reacting to that and DIing it, if it was at the expense of being able to focus on his more dangerous actions, like raw drive rushes and stuff. So if we apply this sort of criteria to Lily, this sort of way of looking at the character and the tools of the character and how they can be strong, in terms of ability to control the mental stack, again, this is why I think Lily is pretty weak in this regard if you're playing in Classic. I think that, like, maybe she has some tools and, like, buttons that can be decent at stopping the opponent's forward approach, but generally, I think there's a lot of way that a lot of characters can rush her down that are difficult for her to deal with, both in terms of her toolkit and in terms of the mental stack, because you have to choose different options for different situations. So I think that playing in Modern can simplify some of that shit. Okay, let me demonstrate. Which one of these is Dragon Lash? Okay, well, this is that's close enough. So, for instance, let me demonstrate fucking classic Lily's options against raw Dragon Lash. So, against Dragon Lash, if you react really fast, you can DI. But if you react late, like so, he can counter DI you. Most of the time you're going to be reacting late. So, most reliable way to deal with this in an emergency. Oh, right, I'm Classic. Okay, this is the easiest way to demonstrate it. So, if he does Drive Rush, Heavy Punch into Heavy Dragon Lash, there is a gap here. There is a strikeable gap of, like... turn off random for now. Or repeat. So as you can see, there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 frame gap here. However, if you react with any of your buttons with Classic Lily, crouch jab whiffs, Standing light kick, whiffs. It goes underneath him. Crouch short, whiffs. And stand jab, whiffs. Stand jab does not hit high enough in the air to tag Dragon Lash. Look at this interaction. That does not hit him. There is a gap there. Stand jab hits first. As you can see in the frame data, my move started to active frames first, did not hit him. And then if you get to 7 frames, like stand medium kick, it's too small, or it's too slow. So, literally no buttons that Lily has can interrupt this from this interaction. She has to do an immediate DI or a perfect parry. So, because not even her buttons will tag Dragon Lash, because their hitboxes go nowhere. Their hitboxes are so low to the ground compared to even what they look like. Like this barely goes anywhere. This, it hits like about as high as it goes and no further. The hitbox does not hit any slightly higher than that. So, because she has these buttons that are generally pretty low to the ground, and it's very easy across her entire toolkit for the opponent to jump around her normals and stuff, and they won't tag the opponent jumping out a lot of the times, it can be difficult to stop the opponent from doing things that put them airborne. So that's why I think that having the one button DP is convenient for situations like that, because she won't be able to do a button that wins against some of those actions. So in general, I think playing Modern is a major contributor, major benefit to the first category, which is ways to control the chaos and control the mental stack and reduce the total strain on your brain. So if we put, it's still not going to be as good as Luke's, but if we put the opponent to do shit, so she has some okay options here. Her DP is not invincible, but it does cover a lot of horizontal distance very fast. So if the opponent's drive rushing at you, they are standing. They are in a standing state, except for Jury and Feng Shui, I think. But most characters, if they drive rush at you, they are in a standing animation, which means that this will clip them. This has a huge distance against standing opponents, and it will clip them on the way in. Now, this is another reason why it's important to have Wind, because Wind increases the speed of all of her DPs by 2 frames. So this, it's not invincible, strike invincible at all. It's anti-air invincible, but it's not strike invincible. It's 6 frames startup to do this. When you get a Wind stock, it becomes 4 frame startup. Very, very, very convenient to have a 4-frame move that hits this far against drive rushes in the neutral. So this is another reason I think Wind is important to have. This is a pretty good control move. Anti-airs, beats lots of stuff. Multi-hitting. I mean, not that many hits, but it is multi-hitting. And pretty good against drive rush. Also, she can beat drive rush with command grab, which you can do with one button in Modern as well. So if I apply any of his, this would not work against this Dragon Lash technique. But most drive rushes into buttons, etc. will go into the active frames of the command grab. That being said, the DP is obviously better. It's just the command grab can be useful in some instances and gives you another tool in case they start doing stuff like drive rush DI, which is what you would normally do to bait someone out. So let me demonstrate. If the opponent does that, again, Lily's DP is not invincible, but it would still beat the DP in this way. Like so. So that's how, you know, like if we put Luke back on, this is what they would do to beat his incredibly good EXDP. And then he whiffs, and then he's -9, and then Ken would punish him. But if the opponent does that, you can react with 1-button super to drive rush or EX command grab. So it helps to have more options, even though DP is usually generally the stronger one. Similarly, having access to this is a 1-button defensive tool. If you're down backing and holding auto, you just hit 1 button and you can do that. As a 9-frame projectile invincible move, this can also be very helpful. If you see, this is also a great thing to react to drive rushes with, especially further out like here. If you ever see the green spike, you just hit that button and it will just blow through the drive rush. 9-frame startup, huge priority in the neutral. Projectile invincible, plus on block, etc. Very good thing to use reactionarily against tons of things that the opponent might do in the neutral. Like, even if they're just going to sit there and, like, if someone's going to set up a fireball in this range, Guile's going to set up, like, you can forward dash and still, like, buffer it, look for it if you need to. If Jamie's trying to steal a drink from full screen, you can see it and do that. Very helpful thing to have that you can just look for that one thing to react with, and it beats a ton of various options. So reducing that overall mental stack and how much it complicates how you have to play. Those are her main 2 particularly good things, or 3. This, and this. Beyond that, she doesn't have very strong ways of dealing with the opponents, of controlling very well. She doesn't have very good buffers against a lot of options. There is one thing that she can do. This is already like a... If you're confident... See, the thing is, Lily is good if the opponent stays on the ground. Even if they're, like, walking in and out, she can just, like, do this, force them to block this. Even a character that moves better and walks better than she does. If they're forced to block that, then she's at her dominant footsie space. So against a Cammy player, right? If the Cammy, for whatever stupid reason, is just staying on the ground, and you can't land any of your footsie tools because she's walking out of your range and constantly whiff punishing you if you try to do this. But if you drive rush medium punch, you can get her to block this. And then you can start your offense that way. So Lily's offense is like split between things that are actually pretty good if the opponent stays on the ground, like things that are relatively safe to do in the full-on neutral, things that are relatively safe to do when you're at this range, and like 0 or -1 or +1 or something, and things that are, you know, safe to... just the close range options, the pressure options, etc. And then you have things that are riskier to do in all of these ways, such as doing these, or these, etc. The main thing is Lily's toolkit is split between options that, like, are safe to jumping and drive rushing, or pretty safe to jumping and, or sorry, drive impacting, and things that just flat out lose to jumping and drive impacting. So if the opponent stays on the ground, doesn't like to jump a lot, that's great news for you. You can lock them down with tons of stuff. It's really easy to drive rush, get them to block crouch fierce and go in. If they jump a lot or DI a lot, it becomes a lot harder. So you have to understand how to navigate your kit between things that are super jump and DI safe, things that are pretty middle of the road, like doing her medium punches or her crouching medium kick in the neutral, and things that are significantly riskier in the neutral, like her big-ass heavies that all have over 35 frames of recovery. So, yeah, her main ways that she can play in neutral jump a lot because she's not that strong in the ground, and if you tag someone jumping in with her jumping medium punch, it creates a float state that you can juggle off of. Or at least get a knockdown off of. She's kind of shit, so she doesn't get like a full combo here. Unless she reacts to this and then forward jumps, and then even then you have to make sure you're close enough or do the right DP. So yeah, her neutral jump, she doesn't have the most amazing jumping buttons, and her jump is kind of floaty, but she has to neutral jump. She has to take risks like that, even though hers is not as good as some other characters. And it has to be incorporated into her kit because the opponent can rush her down pretty hard if she just uses her slower buttons. She's very free to drive rushes and stuff. In that case, you need to get wind. There's a couple ways you can get wind. You can play this game of running away or like suddenly moving forwards with this. The most suddenly you can move forwards if you bait them to coming towards you is like very cheeky, basic way to play the game is backdash, steal a wind, and then immediately when the opponent starts chasing you, and then you immediately reversal them with this as soon as you can. And that tends to hit a lot at like low levels of play. Quote unquote relatively low levels of play. I mean, that'll work all the way through like masters. Low levels of understanding the matchup, I should say. Yeah, very basic concept technique, very like flowcharty option to go for. The next way that you can earn some wind is by getting a drive rush, crouch fierce to connect, and then going into the heavy wind stock, and that'll create a true block string. So there's no real risk there, except for the drive rush, crouch fierce itself. So if you get this blocked, you can cancel into that. You get a safe wind stock. Maybe punishable by certain supers, because it is -8. Alternatively, if you get a non-DR Crouch Fierce, you can go into EX Windstock and get it. If you're playing in this range, so if you get into this range like here, another tool that you have to play footsies with in this range is your actual Windstock moves. So if you can just do them in spaces where they're not going to just whiff hilariously, but do them just at awkward timings and stuff, then the opponent, if you can find ways to be in range so that they can do some stuff, but the opponent won't necessarily be looking to react to it with a DI, then you can steal some Windstocks that way. There's also quite a few instances where you can combo into getting Windstocks if you ever get like a DI or a counter DI or something. You can get, I believe, all 3 Windstocks. Well, you can get 2 Windstocks and still be plus. Like so. So you can still be plus and then lock them down to Oki that you can get after this. And there's various like versions of doing this that give you more or less Windstock. You can even do stuff like this, where you steal one and then do that and then go into another hit, etc. Another thing is that because landing this gives you enough time to get another Windstocks, even if you and still be plus by the time they get up, you can also combo into it in certain instances. Like for instance, like so, and then combo in, get a wind, use the wind, and then get another wind after your wind hits, and get more corner carry and still get Oki if the combo push them to the corner, etc. So there's some variations on that. Most of the time, you're probably just going to be going for very basic damage routes or resets. I think you really need to reset the opponent a lot with this character. Because again, I think it's important to apply a constant mental strain on the opponent. I think they need to be worried about things and looking for things all the fucking time, including when you're already comboing them. So, I do think it is very important to go for resets. So anyways, one thing that you can do in the neutral is Stand Fierce is your best friend. Stand Fierce is really good. Like, Crouch Fierce is, like, hits further and slightly faster and such. and his 2 hits and his, you know, pretty good, pretty solid normal, but at the same time, it leaves you open for even longer. It's more whiff punishable, and one major thing is that this, if you just throw it out and you happen to clip any normal, you immediately get this great punish counter, like, knockdown that you can do lots of stuff off of. So you immediately get some knockdown. You can go for just a regular plain combo, but anytime you get this as a punish counter, you can also just steal all of your wind. You can get 3 stocks and only be -2 when they get up. So there's variations on doing this. Like I said, I don't think you need wind to be able to apply pressure to the opponent if you've already gotten in. And if you are in on the opponent, I do think, generally speaking, I think you would want to stay in. Unless you have, like, a pretty healthy life lead and you don't feel like taking the risk and you just want to, like, back off and play defense. But yes, she doesn't need wind to do offense. Wind helps her in the neutral first and foremost, on defense and in neutral, and it does help her in offense, especially if she has all 3 wind stocks. She can be kind of nightmarish to deal with. Because you can loop so many situations that they just have to keep guessing over and over. So long as you're not too predictable with it and give them opportunities to perfect parry or DI you. So again, like, a lot of Lily players, I feel, kind of default to this, like, only going for, like, very clean offense. But here's the thing. When you're in this neutral, you have much more limited tools than a lot of the faster, better characters like Ken or Luke or Jury or whoever. Because the drive rush is not a huge strain on their mental stack, because you can't drive rush all the way into, like, hit them low, just drive rush into whatever. It's not anywhere near as dangerous as, like, the stronger characters drive rushing in neutral and getting very quickly into throw range. So because she has a lower mental stack by default, and you kind of have to do other weirder shit to apply that heavier mental stack, by playing around with this, doing more erratic movements that they have to think about separately, and sometimes just taking bald-faced risks, like doing this to try to beat out an anti-air, jumping and then doing level 2 to beat an anti-air DP, because this beats any anti-air. This just flat-out wins against anything. Doing drive rush in their face level 2, and it's purely invincible, beats everything, so if they reacted to the drive rush in any way, and you do get Oki off of this. Level 2 is by far and away her best super. It's, I think, the most invincible super in the entire game. It's 9-frame startup, which is, like, fast enough to be useful at hitting things, but slow enough that it's also pretty good at letting the opponent react to something and then punishing them for it. And, but most importantly, incredibly invincible. If it tags them even slightly, it, juggles them towards it, I believe. Well, okay, if you do it to Dulcim from full screen, if you tag one of his limbs, he won't get hit by the follow-up combo. He'll just get launched kind of towards you, but it's not, you don't get the full thing. But anyways, most important thing is that you get Oki off of this. You're quite plus, and it just, you get corner push. So, there's lots of ways you can use it as a bet. A risk you have to take sometimes. If you're right, you get in. It's pretty convenient as a level 2 because level 2s are things that, under the right circumstances, you can rebuild back quickly. Like, you can get 2 level 2s in a single round. So, in terms of utility, they're much more convenient than level 3s. Her level 3 is not great. Wish it was better. It's not that good. But if you can land it, does a lot of damage. Useful for some things, just not as useful as most other level 3s. Having it on one button can be convenient if you, like, react to the whiff of a parry. You can just instantaneously press the button. And even though it's in modern, it still does huge damage. Problem is you don't get any Oki from this. Just the pure damage. And it's not the easiest thing to get into from where she's usually landing her hits. When you anti-air... See, here's the thing about her anti-airs, is that you have your DP. On modern, it's very convenient. You have your crouch fierce. It's pretty good. Pretty solid, generally. And on counter hit, it gets this great juggle state. So this is actually pretty good. So you can get plenty of stuff off this. You can just go into a DP and get, like, pretty decent damage relative to the rest of the cast for an anti-air. And, you get Oki, stuff like that. Good corner push. You can get a Windstock like that. You can get a Windstock like that. The problem with this is that if he empty jumps, you can't get any of this shit. And if you committed to any of those special cancels, they just entirely whiff. So if he empty jumps, either thinking you're going to parry or just directly doing it for this reason, you can't get that DP stuff. Instead, you just get killed for trying to do that. If you commit to the heavy this... Also, the hitbox on this is not great if they don't stick out a button into it. So if you do this, you're just leaving yourself open and they can just counter this and kill you. Unless you play the Windstock game with them again here and like try to bait out a DI and then counter DI here, but even then. So you can do this, but it's still -9, so they can punish this as well. In general, I would say the guessing game, not in your favor if you're doing this. If you anti-air from slightly further away, you can cancel into the non-wind, or if you have wind, the 1 strength lower wind option. So if you don't have wind, you can go into the heavy spire generally. You might have to slightly delay it depending on the height or whatever. And if you have wind, you go into like the medium one. But if you're too close, they will they can whiff underneath them, and then you'll get punished for doing that. Unless you're like really precise about how you anti-air and also special cancel it. But even then, it doesn't really work that well. If you just anti-air them like this, you're around +14, so you can then, if they're close range to you, you can lock them into blocking a crouch fierce. And that can be pretty good. So you're still technically at a range where like you're dominant in the footsies here. It's just like, you know, it's more convenient to just get actual true Oki off of it. Even then, as you can see, a problem with their DP anti-air. One thing that you can do, so if they jump in with a button every time, it's more rewarding to anti-air with them with crouch fierce. If they empty jump more frequently, it's more rewarding to do DP. If you anti-air them from further out, you can do these meaty things and B+, and I generally think this is worth doing a lot of the time. Doing these meaty, Condor Spire setups off of any of your knockdowns. Like you can do it off of your regular DP knockdown. You can get a meaty if I switch him to block after first hit, etc. You have to manually time these with like slight delays, because if you do them immediately, you'll get hit. If I do it immediately, okay, well, more so if you do it off of lights. Like if I do this immediately, it'll whiff. So put a slight delay. Doesn't have to be that significant. Generally pretty easy to get this to B+. Not hard to time. So, I generally think that is worth doing, because they can DP it, although it depends on the nature of their DP, whether or not you can bait them out by doing this. Like, I haven't tested these a lot, but let me just do it right now. So if he does his EXDP on reaction to this... No. Okay, so they can react to this with DPs if they are prepared to, so you'll have to mix it in with other options again. Every situation... You can't just rely on one thing. You have to mix it in with other options just so that they can't always be focused and able to react to what you're doing. you can't just let go of a tool because the opponent can react to it with something. You have to instead add other tools to disguise it and put more strain on the mental stack. So there's different variations on this you can do. You can do the heavy one immediately or after a slight delay. You can do drive rush into the medium one if you're confident in their back roll or something. You can do drive rush delay into the light one, etc. Although this one's harder to time. You can dash up and then drive rush into crouch jab. So these are all, you know, some options are clearly mathematically better than others, like just doing raw drive rush. Clearly mathematically better. Just doing this, if they don't check it, clearly mathematically better than most of the other options, but you have to throw those other options in because they can't get comfortable. And then, of course, if I hadn't already mentioned it, there's the ways that you can steal wind off of like the gimmick of doing this on block. So you have the general reversal that most players will do is if they see you doing, they see you do crouch fierce, they'll look for the cancel, and if they see the cancel, they'll hit DI, and it will punish counter your medium or heavy. However, if you do the light version, you'll be able to react at the last frame and counter it. Now, luckily for her, even though most of the time her strike damage is not that high, she does have one of the better meterless, or at least no additional meter, punishes when she counter DIs. So this combo that she does, actually pretty solid. The fact that you don't have to spend any extra meter and you get 3,000 damage, and you build back your bar that you did for the drive impact by the end of the combo anyways, so you lose no meter and you get 3,000 damage, no resources spent, not even wind. I mean, if you have wind, it'll spend it on the DP, but you know what I mean. So, pretty solid counter DI option. More damage than most characters get off of a meterless, no resources spent counter DI combo. There is more modern tech, not modern, but there is more recent tech that people try to do against this dilemma, where they will practice that and then they will buffer in a perfect parry right there. And then off their perfect parry, they will buffer in the forward dash for the drive rush, so that if she does the light version, she'll punish both of them. There is a way, however, that Lily can still beat this out. Now, one, the perfect parry has to be either between the medium or the heavy, because there is a 2-frame difference between them, so they have to guess which one it is for the perfect parry to even go through. But even so, Lily can also just manually delay either the medium or the heavy anyways. So if she delays the heavy follow-up by just slightly like that, their option select will just get them hit like that, because they're option selecting not being in block stun or parry stun, so then they drive rush forwards and then they get hit by the heavy windstock move anyways. Lily can also regain a windstock whenever she gets any of her knockdowns, pretty much. I'm not super certain about where exactly I would rather take a windstock versus Oki. I generally think it's a mistake to let the opponent not suffer any mix on their wake-up. But I don't know. I mean, it's like you can apply Oki right now versus, like, stealing a lot of meter. For instance, if you land, if you get, like, a perfect parry and then you land punish, counter, heavy punch, you could, you could just take your Oki in one way or another. But at the same time, you know, you could also get, like, all 3 windstocks and then, I don't know, I mean, if you're confident about quickly winning neutral again or something, or not at least losing neutral, then you can apply a lot more pressure and, like, put a lot more mix on the opponent, you know, sometimes. So, I don't know, if you just randomly get, like, a this lands in neutral. Should you take your Oki, or should you just get another Windstock again? I'm not super confident about when exactly and where exactly this is preferable. I think that if you're low on drive gauge, you should not necessarily be applying offense unless you are prepared to burn yourself out. Like, I'm not saying you have to burn yourself out on offense, but like, if you have 2 bars or less and you go for Oki, you have to understand that you might get perfect parried, you might get DI'd, you might get level 3'd, etc. So, you know, you have to be aware of those realities whenever you do any sort of offense, especially with a character that has to take risks on offense, like a grappler. So, if I do think that all Lily needs to apply offense is drive gauge, I do think that sometimes you should overspend, just put yourself in burnout and just keep up the pressure, surprise the opponent, get extra hits, whatever. Depends on if you can win or get some sort of meaningful advantage, or if you're going to be super screwed if you enter burnout. I mean, if you have a lot of wind stocks, there's still things that you can do while you're in burnout. So if you... But, you know, I don't know. Do what you feel like, but mix it up. You have to, again, follow the tenets that I prescribe. You have to be constantly applying mental stack to the opponent. If you're not doing that, if there's some point where you're like letting them relax by not mixing up your approach or offense or like weird shit that you're doing. So for instance, if you land one of these in neutral, maybe you want to take your Oki, or maybe you want to take a Windstock. Don't just leave it at that. Add more elements to it. Do other weirder Oki. Steal more wind. You know? Make the opponent not be able to relax on anything that you're doing. Yeah, anytime you're already getting a safe wind is a much better time to actually steal extra wind. Do you see that counter there? Watch the wind gauge. I'm doing light wind. Watch the wind gauge. See how it takes a long time for 1 to appear, and then a little delay, and then 2, and then 3 appears almost instantly after? Lily accelerates her wind gauge. If you hold the same wind spike, she gets faster and faster at counting that thing up. So 2 and 3 appear really close to each other. So if you're already getting a safe windstock out, you're much closer to getting 2 and 3 than you would be if you're just in neutral and you try to get another one and then another one. You see what I mean? So in places where you can already get a windstock, totally reasonable to use that as a even more logical opportunity to steal more. Especially because if you're already in the animation, they won't be able to, like, they won't be able to tell that you're stealing extra turns, stealing frames, until they realize that you're not letting it go. They can't just look at the startup animation and then, like if you're in neutral, they can't just see you backdash, do this animation, and then react to it with like a drive rush towards you. So, anyways, in terms of actually getting down to brass tacks, how do you approach the opponent? First of all, your safer options in neutral, like, okay, ways that you can actually get from neutral into throw range. Well, you can do it by having them block a max range Crouch Fierce into light Condor Spire, and then you'll be anywhere from 0 to +2. +1 is the most common. And by that matter, this is another thing about the reversalness of this game, but even if you're wrong, even if you misspace it and you're anywhere from like -2, -3, whatever, you can threaten a perfect parry. So here's the thing, if they try to throw you here or something, and most of the time they won't reversal with throw, they'll usually reversal with buttons, especially if they're not sure what the frame data is. It depends. But anyways, so you can backdash the throw. More importantly, though, you have a way of beating throws with a delayed... You have to delay your input, and then you have to delay your button. And then you can do a jump cancel command grab. So if you do the best, easiest way to do this is to just wait as long as possible, then do the 360 really fast, and then hold the jump for, like, a little bit. Like, wait to input the 360 until you would have normally pressed any other button, and then just hold the up slightly longer, but not so long that you just jump all the way out. And then you'll get the throw invincible command grab. So anyways, yeah. The ways you get in, you can get this very tightly if you space out your crouching heavy punch, and this locks them down. This is, at least when you don't have wind, this is like the biggest make or break of the character, because right now nobody knows the Lily matchup because nobody cares, because this character is not considered good, and not that many people play her. That being said, if someone were to study the Lily matchup to figure out how to beat her, this is one of the biggest, like, weak points, where this is really, really strong if the opponent doesn't beat it. However, this is an unfortunate position where this is strong, but there's no other mental stack Lily can apply here. So, for instance, that's what I mean. So, unfortunately, there's just nothing else that she can cancel Crouch Fierce into that looks like Light Condor Spire. There's no way that she can do it in a way that they can't just look for it and then perfect parry it. And there's no way for her to bait it out. Like, usually, in a lot of the instances where Lily can do meaty Condor Spires, it's worth doing, even though it can be perfect parried, because you can make slight variations on when it hits, but also, more importantly, you can bait them out. So if I have the opponent whiff, like, a parry on their wake up or something, wake up reversal, parry, doesn't matter when, and if they perfect parry that, it doesn't matter, because you can still bait them out by doing a shallower one, and then punish counter them for an absurd amount of damage. You can react to the blue. If you set them up for it, in the long run, you can make it worth it. Especially because the aberrant timing makes it harder to consistently perfect parry it. However, there's no way to bait it out off of this. There's no way to bait out the parry because the light one is the shallowest one you can do. So if you do this, they can just react to this and perfect parry this. There's no way to actually beat their reaction. So instead, the actual solution is, again, to trick them. We need to trick them by finagling around this bullshit. We need to trick them by canceling into light and heavy and medium wind stocks and such. Maybe even sometimes EX, for literally no reason other than just to distract them more, make them think that we're doing something. Because we can react slightly faster, and it's slightly safer than doing the light version. We could just do the EX one as well, like that, although it treats a true block string, and there's nothing for them to even do in between. Oh, because there is no in between. But we need to distract them by doing this, not even necessarily because this is our primary way of getting wind, but we need them to be reacting to that shit so that they won't be reacting to this. We need to distract them from our real cheap-ass way to get in, which is this. And this, being able to do this, drastically opens up our options for, because remember what I said about the four categories, or the four aspects? You've got ways to limit the mental stack that you have to deal with and control the things you have to react to. Good control options, damage, ways to, like, variety of mental stack to apply, and ways to mix up your pressure without draining yourself of meter. So, lots of characters. This is another thing that compounds. You know how it's now, how all the mental stack stuff compounds? Like, if you have 3 options the opponent has to react to, that can already be difficult. But if you had a 4th one that they have to react to, let's just say all of them are equally dangerous and they have an equally compelling reason to react to each one of them, that's just impossible, right? It's not additive, it's multiplicative. Every one you add dilutes your attention even further and makes it even harder to react to each individual thing with the proper response. It's the same way with having more options to pressure without draining yourself of meter. For instance, Ken, right, like this is the major difference between Ken and Luke. Ken can apply pressure by doing low forward, drive rush, or drive rush, low forward, drive rush, etc. Drive rush fierce, and it's plus on block, and then he can do whatever. He can do this into his Rekka. He can do any of his buttons into his Rekka, which he can go into, he can feint it, do it like this, etc. So, in terms of ways to apply offense, he has raw drive rush, he has EX Fireball Drive Rush. He has Button Drive Rush, usually low forward, into jab or into raw throw or whatever. But the thing is, like, he doesn't need to do that. It's just, this is incredibly dominant when he does this, but if he does it, like, multiple times in a row, like, what is he gonna do after that? Eventually, he'll run out of meter, right? But he has different variable ways to apply mental stack to the opponent, but not all of them cost meter. He can mix the opponent up while letting his meter recharge by rotating between his non-metered options, and then he can go back to using his metered options, you know? It's multiplicative. It's like, if he had one really strong metered option and one way of applying pressure without meter, then as soon as he no longer has meter to spend, he only has the one option to apply pressure. He can't rely on that over and over because it gets predictable and easier to react to and whatever. And then his pressure ends before he gets his drive gauge back, before he can use his stronger drive gauge pressure. However, if he can rotate between 3 or 4 meterless options, he can keep up the pressure long enough and mix you up hard enough that and confuse you long enough that his drive gauge comes back, and then he can just do his fucking drive gauge pressure again. So it all loops back into itself. All of his meterless ways of applying pressure between this, this, and, you know, low meter options, but like raw drive rush, etc. This. All of these options are low meter or meterless, and if he rotates between those enough, he can spend so long pressuring you without even having to spend any drive gauge that he just gets his drive gauge back, and then he gets guaranteed pressure with drive rush cancels. Now, that compared to Luke, who, this is like his only thing that he's not as strong as, like, the only way that Luke is not as strong as Ken or some of these other characters is that Luke does not have a billion meterless ways to still mix and pressure and open the opponent up and get into mix range and keep the opponent blocking. He has good pokes and stuff, sure, but, like, he doesn't have multiple neutral skipping things that are completely meterless. His main thing is raw drive rush or button drive rush. And then occasionally he can do this as well, and he has a really good jump fierce. In the corner, he has much better options because the opponent can't back away from fierce, so fierce fireball becomes a much better pressure tool, medium kick becomes much better, and he can more easily space his standing heavy kick to be plus. So where is it? Yeah, somewhere around there. I don't know. So anyways, the point is that, like, if he does get them into a corner, he actually has a multitude of ways of continually locking them down for long enough that he gets his drive gauge back, and then he can do his really oppressive pressure again. Some Luke players will do this. Other Luke players will just say, fuck it, I want to do the strong stuff, and they will just constantly burn themselves out by just only spending his drive gauge to constantly do pressure because he doesn't have the stronger meterless options that Ken does. So anyways, like I said, that's important thing to think about the character. You have to think about when you're trying to apply pressure to the opponent, you have to apply mental stack first. You have to make them concerned and uncomfortable and trying to react to a billion different things at once. Second thing, you have to mix up your options enough that you can complete that objective whilst also being able to subtly rotate between metered and non-metered options so that you get your meter back. Now, for this character, what metered and meterless options do you have? In terms of getting from neutral to getting in on the opponent, unless the opponent opens themselves up by jumping at her or doing something that she can stop, if the opponent's if she just needs to approach, she doesn't have great ways of doing this meterlessly. In fact, I think she has almost no good ways of doing this meterlessly, except for taking a hard bet, like a jump into a level 2 or this or something. She's not good at approaching without meter. Now, I said that these can be reacted to and DI'd, but it's very hard for people, just like humans in general, to react to the difference between this and make different decisions, especially because of how fast both of them hit. So, if you do this in neutral more frequently than you do this, at least, you can discourage them from reacting to this animation with a DI, and you can sometimes steal a meterless way to get in just using the non-EX version. But if you just flat out don't have meter, and they know that you're probably not going to spend the EX bar on this, then it becomes much riskier to do that because they can just react to that in DI. So, without meter, she has really bad options for getting in. You need meter to get in. Once she has meter, like I said, drive rush between your pretty safe options like crouch jab or stand jab. Your pretty safe pokes that will get you into this range where your footsies are better than the opponent's, like stand strong or crouch strong, are both good for entering into this range. Crouch strong will leave you more plus and generally leave you closer. And then you have stand forward and stand medium kick low forward, which are good if you have a lot of meter or wind with you. Because, if you can get them to block something special cancelable, you can just go into your wind stuff. And even if they drive reversal you, they're still losing drive gauge in the interaction. So there, you only spend the one drive gauge going in, and they had to spend a bit more to get you off. So any time that you can get in a way that doesn't leave the opponent with more meter than you or a better situation than you is advantageous. So if you can get them to block any of the Wind Condor Spires without spending 2 or more bars, that's a win. If you are exclusively if you are playing Classic, if you manage to tag them with Heavy Kick and they block it, that's also a win, because you take off almost a full bar of their drive gauge. So that is always a win if you get them to block that. Another thing that you can do in Classic that you can't do in Modern, if you get into this range, this mid-range like this, where your footsies are more dominant, overhead is another thing to add to the mental stack that is actually pretty good for the character. Another thing to, like, make some sort of approach that leads them to still react to other things. That being said, it is definitely beatable. You know, it definitely has its weaknesses. Like, if people studied the character, it's a pretty slow overhead at 25 frame startup. Perfect parryable. Susceptible to neutral jump and DI, which sucks because most of her kit is already pretty susceptible to neutral jump and DI anyways, so... But still, handy thing to have. Adds one extra tool to the mental stack application. Another way to get in is doing, like I said, regular crouch fierce into this. Drive rush crouch fierce into this if it's properly spaced. If you can get them to, like, stay in, like, relatively, like, this position, even if you're here, like, -7, that's still a range where it'll be very difficult for them to react to EX Condor Spire. So if you can get them to react to that, it can be it can win. I wouldn't do that if you're just expecting them to block. I would do that if you're expecting them to attack or move forwards. Again, I don't think this is, like, a thing you should be throwing out if you think the opponent's just going to block, necessarily. I think you want to make the opponent feel pressured to, like, act and poke you out, and then use this to beat their pokes and stuff. Because if they block this, you're almost always losing gauge on it. The only alternative is if you do it, one, if you feel confident that you can play them while you're in burnout and you just want them to lower their drive gauge. So if you're completely comfortable, like, both losing 2 bars over and over and over for some reason in any particular matchup, you think that's, like, worth doing. Yeah, I mean, there's some merit to doing that, probably. That's basically how the Zangief matchup goes. Zangief is really bad against Lily, and, yeah, I mean, he has to... Probably, like, he has to just, drive reversal a lot of the Condor Spires that he blocks, and, you know, you're both burning yourselves out, but she can still play the matchup pretty well in Burnout, and he struggles even harder to chase her down, if they're both in Burnout, so. But, right, what was I talking about? Block all... No, wait, drive reversal, yeah. The only other thing to add, and I do think you should do this sometimes, if you've confirmed that a particular opponent has a, like, clearly goes for the drive reversal very consistently in the matchup, cancel into level 2, hard read them, and just blow through it. And again, you can use this as an in. You get Oki from this, and you also drain a lot more of their drive gauge because they spend it, but they also get hit by the super. Now, in this weird Mario Party-ass game, where you can be winning everything and then just get a bad jump in on you and get put in the corner and fail to react to a weirdly timed DI and you can just fucking lose everything, right? Where blocking is a nightmare and you're constantly losing drive gauge because you're blocking and all that sort of shit. In this type of game, do I think that it's better to take risks early on to try to get a significant life lead? Like, is this hard read worth doing early on? Or is it something you would only rely on when you're losing the match and you need to make a comeback? I don't know. I'm leaning towards doing it when you're already fine, either evenly matched or winning, you know? I feel like there's only so many things that desperation can achieve necessarily, especially if the opponent is wary of it. And that's one thing that will be shifted with this game, is that desperate comebacks, I mean, it's very difficult to avoid any sort of comebacks in this game because level 3s are so strong. and the situation can flip on you at any moment. If there's like 20 things you have to react to all the time, and if you just fuck up any one of them, you can just now be in a losing situation. But I don't know. I'm not confident saying one way or the other right now. Anyways, other ways that you can get in. If you get them to block forward heavy punch, it does have a sort of Rekka follow-up sequence. Each hit is a frame trap. You can catch people off guard with this. Kind of gimmicky, obviously, but it's usable. It is usable for the character. Include it in the number of things. Again, you don't necessarily have to only use good options. It is worth using kind of mediocre options if it makes the character think about them. The beneficial thing about this is that the animation for the follow-up looks at least a little bit like this. That being said, I don't know if, I don't think this is safe to DI anyway, so if they react to it, you're still going to get hit by DI. That being said, I don't actually think it is reactable. I have to actually check. Let me test that really quick. It doesn't matter. Like something being reactable doesn't fucking matter. The only thing that matters is that it's weird and not a lot of people use it, and you won't use it very often, and so people will be like, "What's that?" So the other more solid ways of getting in is anytime you can get them to block crouch fierce and you drive rush cancel it, you get great options off of this. You get, so, one, you're blessed with the ability to immediately do, block, EXDP. So, you can drive rush and then block DPs. I think it's this is -2. It's really, really safe for a drive rush cancel move, if you drive rush into immediately blocking. This, crouch heavy punch has a lot of blocks done. So anyways, yes, you can bait out DPs, which means that you have the legitimate freedom to go for immediate normal throw, which you do get Oki off of, mid-screen. Really good Oki as well. You can go for normal throw, you can go for any level of delayed button to catch like a delayed jump back or a delayed jab or something. You can go for command throw. You can go for a frame trap of some sort. You can go for... So, a lot of people do back fierce because it's very auto-time. It's completely auto-time to be a true frame trap. I don't like doing this. For one reason, doing an auto-time thing just leaves you open to getting perfect parried more often. Two, this shit is not good on block. It's +2, but the space that you're at leaves you no decent options. If the opponent blocks 2 moves and then, like, tries to jump out or something, normal throw, jump back, let's say, backwards jump after 2, you're not close enough for your 4-framer when you do this. And your 6-framer will trade with 4-framers in this instance, so you have to do your 5-framer, crouch short, which doesn't link into anything. So there's no way for you to hit confirm, keeping them on the ground after this setup. I do not think this is a good thing to go for most of the time. If you're really confident they're going to mash buttons, yes, this has really huge reward on counter hit. But I don't think it's particularly good. Much better, instead, is going for letting yourself slide for it as long as possible and then going for a frame trap crouch fierce. Crouch fierce will not leave you in normal throw range, but it will leave you in 4-framer range, which means that you can actually check them. Not only that, but crouch fierce is 2 hits, which makes it easier to react to DI. Whereas if you do this, I do actually believe this is safe to DI, but, you know. So if you do that, you can confirm them. And then, you know, it depends on if you have wind or if you want to spend meter, and I'll talk about her kind of awkward combo structure. Now, here's the thing. When you're in this range, and you can actually frame trap them and stop them from just mashing light, because if you do this, what are you going to do? What are you going to do to stop them from pressing their 4-framers? Oh, nothing? Great. Nothing that you can confirm into anything? But if you do that, you can confirm them. And then it depends on your resources and the situation how you want to confirm it into damage. Or if you want to go for a reset of some kind. However, this is the real beauty of this setup of doing Crouch Fierce here. At this range, if you check them on their 4-framers or their back jumps or whatever with Crouch Short Stand Jab. Crouch Short Stand Jab is the GOAT in this instance. Now, all of Lily's sequences, depending on how plus she is or how close she is after certain actions, there's like usually a sequence of light buttons she can do on hit or on block that will leave her at the optimal range for her to do all of her Crouch Fierce bullshit. Specifically Crouch Fierce into light. Now, unfortunately, I forgot to mention, this is also another weak point of the character, unfortunately, where if you are at the range to do max range Crouch Fierce into Light Condor Spire, if you are at that range, you're actually too far away to get these most of the time. So if you're at truly max range, there is a sweet spot. There is a sweet spot where you're still technically in range to land this, but you can still be +1 on block. There is a sweet spot where you can still be +1. Right about there. But it is a sweet spot, and if you miss it, you can be in range that you're just whiffing those, which is, you know, not great. So that is the unfortunate part, is that, like, you have to distract them with this, but you technically can't do these in the exact same instances. So, for instance, if I have the opponent, let's see, block, reversal, light punch after 2 things, yes. There. You can usually be around 0 on block. Depending on how you do it, you can be like +1 or 0. So that is the right range. If you challenge them with Crouch Short Stand Jab, 1, you can choose to just confirm that into a knockdown if you want to spend a resource on it. Or 2, it doesn't matter because you're +6. You are +6 after the stand jab, and you are at the proper range to do this Crouch Fierce into this again. So, you know, there are certain aspects where it can be slightly, you know, messed up. Like, for instance, you're +6 and you're not +7. So, in fact, if they jump back on the... If they jump back here... it'll technically clip them out of the air right there, because it's just 1 frame too slow. And, then if you are automatically going into the Light Condor Spire, it will whiff like that. However, you can actually deal with this. Because you actually have a wide special cancel window on Crouch Fierce. On a lot of her heavy buttons, actually. So you can actually react to them staying on the ground or jumping, and you can cancel into the correct Condor Spire appropriately. But even then, if you hit them out of the air and then you cancel into the medium one instead to hit them meaty like this, it can be a little bit It's better if you have wind, because it kind of takes the... Actually, hang on. Yeah, it takes the middleman out of it, because light, wind, Condor Spire covers both options if they stay grounded or if they get clipped out of the air. Like so. But yes, you can technically do this and have them like randomly alternate between this and then doing nothing, right? So you can react to, if they stay on the ground, cancel into light one. If they had jumped, cancel into the medium one. That being said, it is very obvious why I don't like this fact, because that puts the onus on you to have to react to the situation. You have to be paying attention, where the entire point of all this is to put the mental pressure on the opponent. They have to be reacting. They have to be paying attention. They have to be stopping your approaches and stuff. So you don't want to have things that like you need to be that focused on when you're applying the pressure to the opponent. That being said, it is handy that you have like a way to deal with both options. And generally speaking, I think if you apply this in rotation with all of your other options really effectively, I think it won't really matter anyways, because at the pace that you can play, this is really strong. Because, again, anytime you get into like a good range for this or something, there's lots of situations where you can check them like that, do a light sequence, leave yourself at +6, and then do crouch fierce, and you can work with that. And I believe this is still in range to get this. Yes, you are still in range to connect with the heavy windstock, because you're technically in a range where you'll be +0 instead of +1 or 2 off of the light Condor Spire cancel. So, if you rotate these options enough, they won't be thinking to jump out of this, and you have other ways to deal with it if they are jumping out on a guess, which leads us to our next... Oh, I should finish off what you can do off of Crouch Fierce Drive Rush Cancel. Another thing that you can do off of Crouch Fierce Drive Rush Cancel is, one, Lily often finds herself point blank in front of the opponent when she's plus. It's kind of unavoidable. You're here, you're +1, or you're here, you're +2. This slightly sucks, because in this game, it's actually very risky to be right in front of your opponent, even if you're plus, because if they have a DP or a decent super, let's say he reversals with EXDP, right? If I hit a button, if I attack him, I get hit, obviously. Let's say he does... Let me record a neutral jump heavy punch. So if I wanted to beat his Shoryuken, there's two things I can do. I can just walk backwards or crouch block. I can delay tech, like that. So, delay throw tech. Or I could hard bait it with a DI or a super. If he does nothing and he just stays blocking, what can I do? I can walk back. I can crouch block. I can delay tech, which will back throw him, which I don't necessarily want. And if I do DI or super, DI could lose, super definitely loses if he just chooses to block. Now, if he does a delayed throw tech, which many of them will in this situation, so let me put him on normal throw at a delay of like 7 frames. If I walk back, let me just put a delay of like 5 frames. If I walk back, I get thrown. If I crouch block, I get thrown. If I delay tech, I'm fine. Well, it generates a tech. I don't win the situation, and in fact, I lose my offense, but, you know, I survive the situation. I don't get hit by the DP or the throw. If I neutral jump him, I might be able to punish him? No. If I backdash, I can definitely throw bait him. If I super him, it kind of depends. I would have to test it more. I'm not sure how well this would work against a 6-frame DP versus however long they delay their delay tech for. But the problem comes with this one. The neutral jump heavy punch. If I walk backwards, it's fine. I can DP. If I crouch block, I can DP. If I attack, it's fine. You know, it's whatever. If I DI, it's whatever. But if I delay tech, waiting for his DP, if I do this, wait to block the DP, delay tech to block his delay tech, I get hit by this, and then I get completely devastated here. So, not only is it somewhat likely that he'll do this just because he might think you're going to command grab him, but this rotation of 3 options, normal throw, neutral jump, heavy punch, and EXDP, there is not a consistent way to deal with all of them. See, I walked backwards, I got thrown. Walked backwards, dealt with that option. Delay tech, dealt with that option. That's the problem. That is the problem of being that close. And there's other things that they could do as well. They could do a low forward if you're trying to walk backwards or backdash. There's other things, but it's mainly that rotation of 3 options. Maybe substitute a backdash for the neutral jump, depending on the character, etc. But the problem is, in this game, because throw techs take so fucking long, they're 30 frames in total, if you are right next to the opponent, even if you're plus, you are in a bad situation if they have an invincible reversal. If they have like a good reversal, like an EXDP, 6 frames, you have to either try to bait that out, or accept that you're going to get thrown by their back throw because you can't walk out of their delay tech in time, or if you try to delay tech, you can get throw baited yourself on your own offense. So because of that, situations where you're plus but here, like this far away from the opponent, close enough that you could use your plus frames to move in and throw, but far enough away that you can walk backwards and be out of their throw range, being here is way stronger than being here. So that's why I think it's pretty good to do Crouch Fierce into Whiff Light Kick. That'll leave you at -5, which is just enough to bait out DPs. What? Oh. But it also won't lose to this rotation of options because you can be outside of normal throw range. In fact, this is a pretty good way to throw bait the opponent. And in fact, you're still in range of command grab when you do this. So if they just sit there blocking and waiting, you can still mix them. So this is a very strong, risk-averse way of being cautious of their DP tendencies. That is much better than doing a full drive rush and just waiting to block it. Now, you have other drive rush options off of this. You can do a true block string by doing a delayed crouch jab and still be +3. You can do the crouch jab as a frame trap if you time it right and be +3. That's like the most plus you can be off of block if you just expect them to block, but you don't want to take the risk on the command throw necessarily. You can do a middle ground with crouching medium punch, and this will be more confirmable than a crouch jab. You can react to it if it hits and then confirm them into a knockdown. But it's still +1, and you're still in normal throw range, which you wouldn't be off of Crouch Fierce. You can also throw bait them / try to steal a wind stock by doing drive rush into medium wind, and if they delay tech, you can bait them out. By the way, I forgot to mention, this forward heavy punch is single hit confirmable into the follow-ups. If it's just not a great footsies button because it's so slow, and it's not far enough for how slow it is. Beyond that, you have your close range pressure. So, oh, by the way, I should mention, when you have wind, doing crouching medium kick, drive rush crouching medium kick is one of your safest best options. If they jump over it or they DI randomly in neutral, it's not that bad and it's special cancelable. And if they, like I said, if they neutral jump over it, it's a crouching button and it doesn't whiff for as long as your heavies, so you can anti-air them much better. And if they block it, they're forced to block the whole thing no matter how far away they were when they blocked it. Another thing you can do with one wind stock is anytime you land a heavy, even without drive rush, you can go into the light follow-up. Maybe it is only with drive. I might be making myself stupid. Never mind. It's actually only with drive rush. I brain farted there. If you drive rush and connect any of your heavy buttons, you can then create a true block string into the light wind spire. If you do the medium or heavy ones, you can do the medium one off of Crouch Fierce, but if you do the heavy one, it's too much of a delay, and if you do the other ones, you'll create a gap that can be DI'd. I'm not saying they will DI it all the time, and maybe it's worth creating that gap just to throw them off, try to frame trap them or something, but if you want it to be frame tight, true way in, no risk of perfect parry or DI, any drive rush button you make on contact, any drive rush heavy, will go at any range into the light Condor Spire. That being said, if you can sneak it in, it is more valuable to do the heavy one because it pushes them much further on block. But you can do that safely from the crouching medium kick drive rush too, so... Like, see how far that pushes them on block? Now, in terms of your other drive rush, like I said, jumping is one of the biggest problems for the character. If I switch to Ken and do the Lily stuff. And jump and DI are the most consistent problems for the character and a lot of her strong options and approach options. You have to... It's fine. Like, the DI stuff is fine because if you do bait it out, you can punish them really hard too. The jump stuff is the problem for the character, mostly. If the opponent is really neutral jump happy and, like, jumps in a lot of interactions or... when they see a flash of green on the drive rush, it can be a problem for Lily. Especially since the reward she can get off of her anti-airs is somewhat suspect some of the time. Like, if she does a DP anti-air, she either has to spend a win gauge and or take a risks on them reacting to her meaty Condor Spire with an invincible uppercut or a perfect parry or something. Or she has to spend drive gauge to get Oki off of her DP, anti-air. Or if she gets Crouch Fierce, it's inconsistent whether or not it gets her any reward. And if it doesn't get the counter hit float state, then she barely gets any reward off of it. She doesn't even get Oki off of it. So jumping is the problem for the character. So this Crouch Fierce is, even though it has one of the longest recoveries, it's still relatively one of the safer moves to throw out while you're drive rushing. Because it's much safer to DI, because the 2 hits allow you to react and then counter DI. That being said, if you've already committed to doing, like let's say I record Lily doing that, right? Just a quick little way to get anything on block. If he just waits to DI like here, after the first hit has already happened, but before the second hit lands, and she won't be able to see it or stop her cancel that she's already doing. This again just also is a free spot to just DI her. So again, like I said, jumping a lot in neutral, and DI in response to a lot of her strong options, a lot of her Condor Spire cancels, a lot of her heavy buttons, etc. If she's already committed to canceling them, or even if she hasn't already committed to canceling them, they just have so much recovery that you can just find yourself in places where you're getting DI'd a lot if the opponent's very DI happy. DI is a much bigger problem for Lily than many other characters in the cast, who can structure their offense and neutral in a way that they don't have to run into DI that much. Alternatively, if you fight people that are very cautious and, like, tentative and don't like DIing and don't like jumping that much, you can just turn their own nobility against them. Because if they're not doing that shit, you're not running into your biggest weaknesses. So, here's another problem. Neutral jumping and forward jumping. And actually back jumping, because back jumping is a problem because it makes it harder for her to apply her offense. A lot of her heavies leave her wide open to getting jumped when you do them. In neutral, and like I said, super easy to whiff punish these big heavies. They don't apply proximity block at all, so you can just wait until the green flash happens, start walking backwards, and then if it whiffs, you can just easily see it and whiff punish it. So, again, that's a situation where, like, she technically could cancel, but if it's done too late, you won't be able to see it in time, but it'll still punish counter you because the recovery's so long. Off of a lot of her heavies. A lot of the things you'll be doing will be susceptible to this, including low forward into wind. Or any special cancelable button into wind. So, you have to hard bait this out with more stuff like your medium punches and your crouch jab and crouch fierce, but done in such a way that is more like cautious of, or more like drive rush, button drive rush will help you beat DIs. And to avoid spending extra meter to counter DI after that, you can punish the DI with a command throw. So your medium punches will be much, much safer to DI. But in general, she still does not have great options. She doesn't have like a single, like, really solid button in neutral that's super safe to DI, like a Luke crouch medium punch or whatever. She has standing medium kick, but it doesn't go that far. You know, like, even if you drive rush it, it doesn't go that far. That it can't, like, help you get in from your weak range to your strong range. So, on some level, there's only so much you can do. You know, you have to just bait them and then punish them harder. Solid combo, like a good punish counter combo that you can do when you do a counter DI. This is already that route is already really solid, but you can do other stuff like pure damage, you can do that. If you have a wind stock, you can get some pretty decent corner carry. If you have 2 wind stocks, you can get combos with like extra good corner carry. So yeah, just adding on more and more tools to our offensive arsenal here. Yeah, if the opponent jumps a lot, it's your imperative to, as much as possible, tag them with this. Tag them with real damage. Now, one of the things is that if the opponent, okay, say, like, they're gonna jump out of this. If you do this, into your lockdown with the crouch fierce, right? So let's say they, you know, they're blocking, and then whatever, stand jab. after blocking, and then they reversal jump backwards, right? You can do that to chase them down. So after the +6, there's a couple things you can do. So you can go for medium windstock as a cancel, and if they try to jump out or press buttons, it'll clip them, and you'll get a free windstock out of it. As a quick little reset. Again, like I said, I think this character needs to do resets, not just because you need to apply the mental stack pressure, which is very important, but also because you need to reset your combo in ways that let you steal turns and steal mix-ups to get your drive gauge back. You need to do things that will let you continue to steal turns without continually spending drive gauge. So you can forward dash on that and still anti-air with the here. You can forward dash an anti-air, back jump, or a neutral jump. You can do that, and depending on how much wind, there's a variety of other things you can do with that as well. So if I put the character-specific settings, I put wind on 2, for instance. So if you have 2 wind, you can do stuff like this. To catch the back jumping. So, yeah. When you're plus in front of the opponent, okay, so there's 2 states that you can be when you're within pressure range. So in the close range, you're either within command throw range or out of command throw range, but still in crouch fierce and crouch strong and stuff range. So you're either in command throw range, in normal throw range, which is like point blank, in command throw range, which is like out here, and then in like crouch fierce range and stuff. And you can either be plus or you can be like -1 around any of these ranges. So if you're plus within the point blank range, like if you're plus off of these, go for your frame traps. Go for resets. If you're close enough, so if you're in the first range where you're like almost within or within normal throw range, crouch fierce actually gets really useful, because if you're confident the opponent isn't going to mash their fastest button, because this is a 10 frame startup move, and if you're only like +4 or whatever, their fastest move is their mash is gonna win. If you're confident they're either going to do like a jump or just or a backdash or sit there and block or mash like a DI or something, crouch fierce is a really good move to use in the close range. So it's like, if I do this, check their mash out with the 4-framer, and then crouch fierce, because if they jump, it will clip them, because it's close enough to clip them with that first hitbox. And then you can do an option select with crouch fierce. Like that. Here, let me reduce it to only 1 wind stock, because you can actually do this without wind. So you can do a meaty, heavy... I forget if you can do a meaty, medium one. No. Well, maybe if you delay it more, but... So you can do a meaty, heavy spire. It's better if you have wind, and you can do the medium version, and it's much more plus. But yes, you can do this. And the option select works is that if they jump out, you will cancel into the first special you do, but then you can do a secondary special, an EX special, if they don't jump out. So that's the option select. If they jump out, you get an automatic Heavy Condor Spire. If they don't jump out, you get an automatic EX Windstock. I wish you could buffer it into other things, but the only way this works in these games, like Street Fighter V was like this as well, is you can buffer a normal special, and then the second action you buffer can be an EX special. And then it will change the inputs depending on what happens. That's the only way these option selects works. You can't do it into, like, you can't have it do a Heavy Condor Spire if he gets hit out of the air, but a Drive Rush if he stays on the ground. That's not how it works. So doing the option select. Oops, messed that up. That's the option select. So Crouch Fierce is pretty good in point blank range, in zero range. When you're at range 1, which is still within like light command throw range, it's still worthwhile to probably go for like raw drive rushes, especially if you're plus. Like if the opponent counters and then you do. Doing raw drive rush can be pretty good here. You can go for an immediate throw if they, or a 4-framer if they do nothing. If you can see the startup of their backdash depending on when you do this. Especially if it's on block. If they block this all out, here. If they block this all out and then, let's say backwards jump after like 5. Sorry, 4. The freeze frame, this is old, like, this is like Street Fighter V Zangief tech, where they would, like, dash up after their Fierce SPD, and then just hit their V-trigger to use the freeze frame to see what was happening, so they could punish their back jump or their back dash. And you can easily see whether it's a back jump or a neutral jump or a back dash when you use the freeze frame. It might take a little bit of practice to see the difference between the forward, neutral, or back jump, but you can very easily see the back dashes and the jumps. And then, if they stay blocking, just command grab them a bunch. It doesn't matter if you're minus. If they reversal with a light punch, fuck them. It won't hit. They just lose. So it can also be worth it in these instances to steal turns with normal dashing, forward jumping, neutral jumping if you're at this range, because your jump medium punch will still reach, especially if you do crouch jab, which has less pushback on block. But, like, these are the kind of things, like, most characters would not drive rush that close to the opponent, but you don't really have to worry about a delay tech because you're not in a range where they would just buffer a delay tech. And, like, this is the thing. Your drive rush is not that strong in the neutral. It doesn't apply that much of a mental stack. However, when you're closer and you can put the pressure on them, especially higher risk pressure because of the threat of a command grab, you can do these things that most other characters wouldn't do. You can do these things like these close range drive rushes, raw drive rushes, or drive rush cancels. Which are also quite strong with this character. So again, if you see that they did nothing, you can either go for a 4-framer, a throw, or a Crouch Fierce again, and the Crouch Fierce will tag them if they try to react to the drive rush with a jump out. So in this situation, you can go for these command grabs, which are actually very hard to get out of unless you jump or backdash. They're not frame tight, but they're very hard to challenge at this spacing because it just outspaces everything. So instead, you can come at it with a Crouch Fierce. Oh, I'm hitting the wrong button because I'm an idiot. And if they try to jump out, that'll clip them. You know, you have to do these things. You have to rob these things, steal these turns. And when you're closest, when you have the most access to the most options, and thus the most stress to apply their mental stack, this is where these options are the strongest. Not out here in neutral. Our fucking Drive Rush sucks. Our Drive Rush buttons suck. You want to be here. You want to Drive Rush from here. When you're close up, you want to do this bullshit. You want to just rob them. You want to rob from their families. So incorporate all these things, normal dashes. If you're in classic, overhead as well. Overhead's pretty good at this. All these things. Oh, also, if you're ever in zero range, in normal throw range, backdash is a great option. This is actually true for the entire cast. I think more people should incorporate this in the general meta. Doing something plus and then just doing backdash is actually quite strong. So this is like where you need to like put the most practice into and like train yourself to do a billion different cheesy, cheap, fucking degenerate things. Weird ass timings on drive rushes. Fucking do like drive rush in their face into level 2. I don't give a shit. Weird fucking bullshit, because this is where you will apply the totality of everything, and then like when this is how you can rotate your options to keep your meter positive, because if you just try to play quote-unquote honest, you will run out of meter incredibly quickly. You won't land that many mix-ups. You won't steal that many turns and mix-ups either for extra damage and extra drive gauge back, and you'll just be playing with a weaker toolkit. You have to apply that mental stack. You have to do options that are not necessarily mathematically good by themselves, but incorporate another attribute into the mental stack and rotation of ways to save yourself meter. You have to do this shit. Now then we come to the blocking situation. So if you do like, say, if you get a meaty and you do like crouch short, stand jab, you're at the ideal place to get, let me take off my wind. You're at the ideal place to get non-wind Condor Spire and B+. So you have to rotate some of those, drive rush, stand jab, or stand short, crouch jab, variety of other options, crouch fierce, whatever. So if you're at this spacing, you're once again at the sort of range where you're like here, where you're at like, if you drive rush, you're at about this spacing. Crouch fierce is like your happy place in most of the time against most of the opponent's options. And like, being -1 is not that different from being 0 off of this. So most of the same options still apply. Now, if we also incorporate like DI and stuff into the mix, let's take a look at how that turns out. If we do stand medium punch, DI wins. If we do crouch medium punch, it will whiff, but we can like buffer it into a super if we wanted to. This is not a good buffer move, by the way, because none of her supers hit that far forwards. So this is also not a great option. If we do a slower move like back fierce, we actually do have the time to see it and recognize it and then special cancel. If we do crouch fierce, both hits will connect instead of just the one hit. So we can actually option select that if we wanted to, but we can also just react to it. By the way, little interesting little thing that you can do with this character is, back fierce is what you often use if the opponent's moving in and trying to attack you. Most players do this, but a lot of players do back fierce into this to get a win stock. This knockdown is horrible. It's never good. In fact, when you can land like certain combos and stuff, like let's say you land heavy punch and then you can do that into win stock, is actually a shittier knockdown than if you did. So you could do like something like that off of a DI, but you're actually better off. You have a better knockdown just doing that instead, because you're close enough to lock them down with something else, whereas you get nothing off of this. So one of the things that you can do in this instance, if the opponent is you know, moving in and you counterpoke them with the back fierce, you can usually buffer it into light Condor Spire. I think this is pretty good. Gives you Oki, nice knockdown. It's handy to be able to go into this heavy wind stock if you really need the wind, but I generally think doing this is actually a better call most of the time. But there's one clever thing you can do with this, and that's buffer it into DI, because it'll combo. This combos into DI on normal hit. And it's a good buffer move to do in neutral. And the thing about buffer moves in this game is that if the opponent walks up on your ass and hits DI of their own, and you're trying to buffer a move, let's say you're just trying to buffer like a crouch jab into EX, which is one of her really good buffers. I forgot to mention that, but I'll cover that in a millisecond. But let's say you're trying to buffer that. Oh, buffers get you killed in this game, because if you do a buffer like this and it happens to clip a DI, because DIs move their bodies really far forwards, so you strike into the DI and get your buffer's special out into it, and they'll usually get killed by the DI. However, and the same is also true for this. Like if Lily tries doing back fierce into this move a lot, this can just lose to DI a bunch. However, if you buffer it into DI, it auto-counters any DI, no matter what. So if it gets a normal hit, it'll just combo into the DI. If your buffer caught a DI, you'll get a counter for big damage. So this is a nice way to de-incentivize DI, is using this as a buffer in this range into DI. Not only that, but it has the added benefit of you lose a bar, but they lose a bar. Now, they will start recovering their meter like 2 times faster than you will after doing this. But even though this knockdown is also kind of shit and puts them full screen, it is slightly better than the knockdown you get off of heavy wind stock, which is plus 30. This is plus 35. So you actually can land this buffer and then drive rush up on them slightly better than you could otherwise. And get a win stock slightly safer if you wanted to. But, you know, this is a safer thing to do in neutral than buffering it into win stock. But anyways, right, like I was talking about, when you get into, you know, this range and you start doing your shit, or if you're at this range, right? So other options you can do. If you do that, you're gonna get screwed, and it's not worth it to buffer it into drive rush. Even if you have EX, doesn't get enough hits in time. Kind of cringe, bro. So yeah, this, like I said, biggest pain point for the character, DI and jumping, is very obnoxious for her to deal with, because it just is like, the things that she wants to do, she can't do that too much. So anyways, yeah, DI is what DI is, whatever. But let's say they forward jump after this sequence. Wait, I forgot to turn it on. Let's say you do this, and then they forward jump. So if we hit stand medium punch, we can DP. We just have to be a bit precise about it. Doing a slightly delayed light punch DP is ideal here. If you do your DP immediately, it'll whiff because fun character. We do not have enough time. Against some characters, like Ken, we do not have enough time to anti-air with Crouch Fierce here. We have to do a DP. And it can be a bit rough. It can be a bit rough in the way that you have to do it. So again, like I said, biggest pain points for the character. You have to hard call out and beat these fucking obnoxious things as hard as you possibly can to de-incentivize them. Because they just make so much of her kit so much more obtuse and clunky. Back Fierce will get blown up by a lot of characters' jump-ins. If they forward jump after this, Back Fierce will lose. You'll get punish countered. Crouch Fierce is fine because you're crouching. That being said, you actually can't DP this. Let me make sure that it's not, that it doesn't lose to, I'm pretty sure you can do this and not die to a forward jump. Yeah, she's safe. She just needs wind to be able to anti-air it. If they hit a button on the way down, she can probably DP just with a light DP. But if they empty jump, she needs to have the wind for the 4-frame light DP in order to anti-air this. Little pseudo shit safe jump. But yes, she is safe against the forward jump here. She doesn't leave herself open to this. If you drive rush and they happen to jump forward at this instant, you can do whatever you want. If you happen to forward jump when the opponent does something and you like air to air them, Modern Lily specifically has the most consistent, reliable air to air in the game with one button invincible super. Now, if they neutral jump in this situation, in this range number 2, and you whiff a medium punch, you can actually anti-air them with the medium punch. You might be surprised, but this is actually a really good anti-air for neutral jumps. Several of Lily's buttons just put her into a crouching state. So this is standing heavy punch, but it actually puts her into a crouching hurt box. So does this. Standing medium punch, her head goes down. She does not get hit by a lot of jump-ins from their neutral jump buttons. This is a pretty decent anti-air for that. So if they come down with the button, it doesn't matter. That will knock them out of the air. If you do this, you're +7 on a regular fast character's neutral jump. You're +7, which means that, as I explained in one of my other videos, you can do a level 3 as they land, and it will... They can't jump out. They can backdash it, but they can't jump it. So if they instinctively try to hold up, they will just get caught by this. And if they hit a button on the way down of their neutral jump, they will just get punish countered for this outright. So yeah, in general, that's like how I think the offense makes the most sense. You've got like your combos, your corner combos, whatever. I don't really give a shit. Another piece of forbidden jutsu tech is it's good to buffer crouch jab into this, which is very easy to do in a pinch on Modern. You just hit the 2 buttons back to back. Very good tool to have. But also, there's another piece of forbidden jutsu, and that is stand short, stand jab rapid cancel. Normally, stand short has 12 frames of recovery, and stand jab has 6 frames of startup. However, if you do stand short, stand jab, you can cut out like 9 frames, I think. I'm doing basic math correctly. 9 frames in between that, and you can turn it into just stand short, then 9 frames, then stand jab with the rapid cancel, which you can do on whiff. And this will let you cover options in a very interesting way. So you can do stand short and then do, as you can see in my inputs, quarter circle forwards, 2 buttons. So stand short, quarter circle forwards, 2 buttons. So if that hits a normal, it looks like that. If it hits a normal, it will convert off of that as EX Condor Dive, get you your knockdown, and you can cancel it into super if you want. However, if it doesn't, it comes out as jab. So you can do stand short, then quarter circle forwards, 2 buttons, 2 punches, then macro modern input down plus auto plus special for the modern input of EX Condor Dive, and the whole sequence looks like this. As you can see in my inputs, standing light, which comes out as stand short in modern, quarter circle forwards, 2 buttons, down, auto, plus SP. And that whole sequence on whiff just comes out as stand short, stand jab. But if the stand short hits anything, it converts into EX Condor Spire. And if the stand jab, which is rapid canceled, so it comes out faster than it normally would, hits anything, it also combos into Condor Spire. So this is the forbidden modern jutsu, where you can put the 6 active frames within a pretty short period of time between 2 different buttons, and if either one of them clip a normal or clip any forward movement, you convert into a knockdown. You can also do that off of Drive Rush. You can do Drive Rush, stand short into quarter circle regular, because off of a Drive Rush, this will combo into the light Condor Spire, even from a fair ways away, so it works out like that. So you can do Drive Rush, stand short into quarter circle forward light, and then buffer that into the down, the modern EX Condor Spire input. So it looks like this. And if either one of them connects, you get a knockdown. In general, I think that's the majority of my weird niche tech and like philosophy on the character. In terms of which knockdowns are better to go for between doing like your uppercuts, between doing Condor Spires, etc., or with wind. I don't know, man. Just do whatever you feel like. That's not... Mixing up the options, I feel like, is more important. Especially for this character. Like, you have to... All of the characters with command grabs in this game, and Jamie doesn't count because his command grab doesn't deal real damage, so even if it lands as a punish counter, on a parry attempt, it doesn't really deal any more damage. Marisa is kind of the exception here, but Marisa's command grab, it's good. I mean, it's not as damaging as the actual grapplers, Manon, Lily, and Geef. But yeah, Marisa's command grab is threatening. It kind of breaks the rules on this because it's dangerous to parry against it, but it's also pretty damaging and gives pretty good Oki, which is not the case for a lot of these other characters. But Honda's is like kind of whack and has shit fucking nothing Oki, so he also doesn't count. But anyways, yes. Most of the grappler characters, Marisa as the weird exception, are pretty considered not great. Lily, Manon, and Zangief, but they all have... And because they're not great, they're not necessarily utilized or thought of in the meta in the same way, but having that high damage single hit command grab does matter. It does matter, and you need to approach the character differently because of it. because of how it rebalances the opponent using parry against you, but also how it rebalances the threat of the close range and the mental stack. You can't just, play like the other characters in the same way. You have to play... If you just create clean mix-ups, like a clean 50-50 situation, I don't think Lily is very strong. You need to, just like every other mix-up in the game that people are constantly getting hit by is technically reactable, most of them, or technically you can do some sort of option selector against, like throw loops, etc., or JP's constantly clipping people with his drive rush overhead, or his overhead ghosts in the corner, or anything like that. All of those things technically have a reactable answer, or DI, wall splatting in the corner, or just like raw drive rush from mid-screen into throw range, throw, etc. All those things kind of more or less have some solutions, or maybe they're more complex, or maybe they're not real solutions, but you can't just rest on your laurels with someone like Lily and just say, I'm going to take clean Oki. I'm only going for clean setups. I'm going to do strike or throw, and that's it. You have to rob. You have to take opportunities. You have to apply more things. You can't just have them guess. You need to have them constantly reacting to shit. In the close range, if it's just guessing strike or throw, that's not difficult, and you're just going to get DP'd all day, and your risk reward is not going to be that good, and you're going to fucking go back and lose neutral again. When you're in the close range, you have to do other weird shit that puts pressure on the opponent and pressures them to act and to react and be proactive in ways that are not necessarily good for them. Anyways, I think that's most of what I had to talk about with this character. Yep. Yeah, that's about it. See ya.